northern side of the city, says that the trend for most citizens is not to sing in harmony these days. Most of them are simply looking for the exit. The latest local elections have been boycotted by Serbs in this region, and politicians are preying on people's fears, Miljana says.
People who is living in Balkans, that is really emotional people, too much emotional maybe. And for this kind of people, you can very easy to make trouble if you need. When you start to talk with people here, you start from victim talk, Albanian and for Serbs. Because Serbs feel like not have a rights, Albanians feel that is not have a rights in the past and don't want to forget. People in North especially want to be and stay part of Serbia. And people now is wake up in reality and everybody feel very depressive.
Because they don't believe they will be part of Serbia anymore. You think that that dream is dying?
The dream is dying now. Yeah. They don't have any more dreams. This is reality. Kosovo country.
You've been listening to Assignment here on the BBC World Service, written and produced by me, Ed Butler. The editor was Penny Murphy.
That was Assignment from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho, and this is CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Magandang umaga, good morning Manitoba. Faith Fundal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. Abby Adeyemi is our technician today. Corey Funk is our studio director. Brad Lalise is streaming us on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. And Heather Wells is in our CBC Winnipeg local news desk and joining us now with a look at news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, an expert in human trafficking applauds Winnipeg police for their efforts in taking down an organized crime ring. The investigation involved multiple police agencies across the country. We first told you about it yesterday. And it led to the seizure of 30 kilos of cocaine, guns, and millions in cash, cars, and other proceeds of crime. Janet Campbell at the Joy Smith Foundation says where you have drug trafficking, human trafficking is also often at play. We'll hear more about that story. And changes could be coming to left and right turns at a busy downtown Winnipeg intersection this summer. It is a proposed pilot project for Assiniboine in Maine. We'll hear all about it coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Lots to come on the program today. After a Winnipeg businessman was killed in Toronto, friends rallied around his family. Now one of those friends has started a fundraiser with proceeds going to the Canadian Autism Foundation. We're going to hear from him coming up in our 7 o'clock half hour of the program. In our last hour of the program, experts are accusing Peter Nygaard of witness intimidation after he sued a complainant in a sexual assault case against him. They say this is a disturbing trend that is on the rise globally. The I-Team's Caroline Bargood will join us to talk more about that. In our first half hour, though, we're going to ask Winnipeggers the dreaded question. Who will you be cheering for now that the Jets are out of the playoffs? Some might say it's too soon, but we're here to ask the hard questions, as you know. The CBC's Jim Agapito found out, so stay tuned to hear more about what folks, Winnipeggers, had to say. It's going to be a rainy day today. The rain will begin this morning. It's cloudy right now, but the rain is expected today. Some foggy patches as well dissipating as the day progresses. About 15 millimeters of rain in the forecast. Southeast winds early this afternoon as well, and a temperature high of 11 degrees. Stay tuned. Lots to come here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1 after World Report. I'm Faith Fundal.
On Cue with Tom Power.
Before she was one of the most in-demand producers, songwriters, and singers.
Firing flashbangs over the large crowd of demonstrators after yesterday's clashes between pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli protesters, everyone was ordered to leave. Instead, hundreds of people showed up to demonstrate. Freelance journalist Steve Futterman is at UCLA. He joins me now. And Steve, what is happening there right now?
Well, right now the police have moved in. They have made some arrests, but they're primarily tearing down the barricades that have been set up on either end of the encampment. There are metal barricades, and then there are these wooden, basically plywood barricades that have been set up, and they are tearing them down. Now, occasionally you'll hear a number of loud noises in the background. These are the flashbangs, you just heard one there, that police are putting up and they are also used at some point. I believe it was likely tear gas, but it was some sort of irritant that they set off when the protesters were not cooperating. But this is not peaceful. These are not peaceful arrests. The protesters are not going peacefully. They are not peacefully surrendering like we've seen at other locations. So these are confrontations, and this is going to be a very, very, I would say, long and very nasty incursion by law enforcement as they tear down this encampment.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
That is Steve Futterman reporting from UCLA in Los Angeles. Also happening right now, pro-Palestinian protesters are setting up an encampment at the University of Toronto campus. Parsa al-Baheshti is one of the protesters. He says they want the university to disclose any investments in weapons companies that do business with Israel, and they want U of T to cut ties with universities in Israel.
We simply have a right to peaceful protest here. We've exhausted pretty much any other form of protest that the university could have had a chance to respond to. We have basically been forced to escalate this way by the university.
My World Report co-host John Northcott is on campus speaking to people.
I'm here in the middle of King's College Circle at the University of Toronto. The iconic Convocation Hall is on one side, University College is on another. There would be about 100 plus protesters here. There are some 40 plus tents around the area that is the grass that makes up King's College Circle. There is so far no sign of Toronto police force here. There is a private security firm and about half a dozen or so vehicles of theirs and with the U of T police as well. We're seeing a number of tents, a lot of them 1- and 2-person tents, some larger tents, some gazebos being set up. A number of, in fact, dozens of backpacks are here on the ground. A number of people here are wearing keffiyehs, and you can hear probably in the background there the protests of about 50 or 60 students who are gathered at the fence. The fence was set up around this area by the University of Toronto, they say in preparation for the convocation ceremonies here. Those convocation ceremonies are not set to take place until the first week of June. We do know, though, that earlier this week there was a release from university officials saying that they would not tolerate any kind of protest here, and certainly not the kind that has been seen at other universities across North America. John Northcott, CBC News, University of Toronto.
Back to the U.S., it is being seen as a response to the ongoing protests. The House of Representatives overwhelmingly passed a bill last night that would expand the federal definition of anti-Semitism. The CBC's Richard Madden is following this story from Washington for us. And Richard, what is in the bill?
Yeah, so it's called the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, and it would mandate the Education Department use the definition of anti-Semitism by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance to enforce anti-discrimination laws. Now, it defines anti-Semitism, in part, a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews. Now, this bill received rare bipartisan support from both parties, and it was spearheaded by Florida Democrat Jared Moskowitz.
This is a really important time right now for the Jewish community, with students being scared on campus.
But this bill is controversial, not because it opposes anti-Semitism, but critics, including some high-ranking Jewish lawmakers and America's Civil Liberties Union, argue the bill could stifle free speech, and they point out federal laws already exist targeting discrimination and harassment.
So what happens next?
So yeah, it now heads to the Senate, where the
CBC's Richard Madden reporting in Washington. The European Union is offering a €1 billion aid package to Lebanon. It will go to strengthen border controls and stop the flow of asylum seekers crossing the Mediterranean. Here is European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen.
We are committed to maintain legal pathways open to Europe and resettle refugees from Lebanon to the European Union. At the same time, we count on your good cooperation to prevent illegal migration and to combat migrant smuggling.
The EU has offered similar deals to Egypt and Tunisia to strengthen their borders. In Cambodia, schools in Phnom Penh are trying to cope with a heat wave. The bell rings for the lunch break. It has been extended by an extra 2 hours to give students relief from the extreme midday heat. Temperatures there rose to 41 degrees today. Much of Southeast Asia is struggling. That includes the Philippines. Mobile shower units are now available on the streets of Manila. Residents who have water shortages can use them to cool down. Temperatures there are also hovering around the 40-degree mark. Scientists say the excessive heat is caused by climate change and the effects of a powerful El Nino in the region. Ontario's Environment Ministry has ordered a petrochemical facility in Sarnia to suspend production. Several people at the nearby Amjanong First Nation have become ill. Monitors found high benzene emissions coming from the facility. Benzene causes cancer. The company, Ineos Styrolution, says its own monitor has not detected emissions outside the prescribed limit. A new ride-sharing app is looking to reshape the way the industry pays its drivers. Hover launches today in the Toronto market. The company says it's hoping to attract customers with its low fares. The money goes entirely to drivers. Philippe de Montigny has more on their new business model.
Circling Union Station in the heart of downtown Toronto, Uber drivers like 62-year-old Ijaz Butt gather to fight for better working conditions and higher pay.
I'm surviving because my children are helping me. Otherwise, not possible.
A new ride-hailing app launching in the Greater Toronto area is looking to change that. Hover charges drivers a monthly fee, allowing them to keep the entire fare. Founder and CEO Harrison Amit.
Drivers pay $20 a month, and because the drivers are paying that membership, we can charge a little bit less.
I think it's wonderful.
Brandon Agnew-Eiler from the Ride Fare Coalition welcomes the new ride-hailing service and its commitment to providing a livable wage for drivers. But he questions the startup's financial viability.
There's a certain fixed cost of maintaining the platform, so you need to get to a certain threshold of drivers to make it work.
Hover's CEO says he's running a lean business.
Our platform fees are also significantly cheaper, about half as much as our competitors.
Driver Ijaz Butt says competition is positive for consumers, but in a market dominated by Uber and Lyft, attracting them could be a challenge.
Customer only change if they're not satisfied with customer service.
And to win them over, Hover will have to quickly prove it's a better and more reliable alternative than the existing duopoly. Philippe de Montigny, CBC News, Toronto.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. The most read story at cbcnews.ca is about the municipality of South Bruce, a collection of Ontario farm towns about a 40-minute drive from Canada's largest nuclear power plant, has set the table for a historic vote on whether or not to become a nuclear waste dump. That story on our main page. I'm Marcia Young.
Magandang umaga, good morning Manitoba. Faith Fundal here in Studio 15 at Porterton Spence. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. Good morning. We're here with Brad Lillies, our streaming producer, Corey Funk, our studio director, Abby Adiemi is our technician this morning. And hello as well to the folks watching on CBC television. On the show today, more aging baby boomers are helping their kids buy houses, and the trend is historic in proportion. So where does that leave kids of renters? Moshe Lander of Concordia tells us what you need to know. Also ahead, living with HIV and AIDS can be manageable with the proper medication and supports, but the challenges of living with the disease are still a serious problem for many Canadians. We'll speak with one of the organizers of a recent conference on the subject. In this first half hour, though, the big question, who are we going to cheer for now that the Jets are out of the playoffs? We sent the CBC's Jim Agapito to find out. Stay tuned. First, though, from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk, Heather Wells joining us with a look at news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. A woman who Peter Nygaard is charged with sexually assaulting has recently been served with a defamation lawsuit. The disgraced fashion designer is suing April Telek for comments she made to CBC News last summer when the charges were announced. A Toronto lawyer believes this can be viewed as a form of witness intimidation. We're going to hear more coming up. And Winnipeg Transit is poised to award a $9 million contract to an Alberta company that will design and install a hydrogen production station for zero-emission buses. That story as well in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Abby Adiemi has a beautiful photo of the morning. And you know what that means when it's red outside, Abby?
If you are a sailor, you know what that means. It means it's going to rain, so you don't want to spend much time out there. But right now we are starting at a cozy 6 degrees. It's cloudy. You can see that red mix in the sky if you're looking up right now, setting the scene for what's to come. Because, but before we get there, we should also let you know that expect some fog patches. Some parts of the province, in fact, the southern part of the province is seeing more fog, and the northern part is seeing light snow. But the fog patches will definitely be dissipating, and it might affect your commute if you are like on the highway. Either, the Trans-Canada coming in or out of Winnipeg. So take it easy on the road. And rain is on the horizon. We're anticipating around 10 to 15 millimeters to fall through the day, with temperatures reaching the high of 11 degrees. So you might want to, grab those umbrellas. The rain will definitely be continuing all through the day. And that's the mix we're getting for you. And for Friday, it's going to shift to another damp one because the showers will definitely continue, and it's going to be hovering around 10 degrees. Brandon is currently foggy at 3. Thompson is at -1, seeing light snow. Churchill is also seeing light snow at -4. Dauphin is seeing lots of fog right now. It's clearing though, but then as that clears, there's going to be some cloud and rains will come in. Gimli's also foggy, clearing up, and Steinbach seeing fog. Murray seeing fog. The southern part of the province, mostly fog, but back in Winnipeg, we're expecting rain, and then we're currently around 6 degrees, and we're heading for a high of 11.
All righty. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Corey Funk, hello.
Hello. I hope you enjoy your coffee.
Just
so that folks know.
As we started the show, I was like, oh, I'm so sleepy. Oh, I smell something. Oh, it's coffee. But then the show was doing its thing. So.
But I hope you really enjoy it, because actually I used an AeroPress.
Did you spill that?
Yeah, I don't know if folks can see it on YouTube here. I have
goodness.
Coffee all over. I'm not very good with AeroPresses. It's usually a mess.
So sorry, and thank you.
Watch it be bad coffee too.
It's so good. Thank you.
Yes. So now I gotta go wash my sweater. The AeroPresses make good coffee. They're hard work. Anyways, so far the commute is pretty good out there. Haven't heard any major issues though, but as we just heard from Abby, fog patches a lot kind of throughout little parts of the province. So I'm curious what you're seeing or not seeing out there. Give me a call on that CBC commuter line. Tell me if you want to give your fellow listeners an update. That number to call if you're walking, biking, driving, 204-788-3093.
Coming up to 15 minutes after 6 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. Yes, the Jet season is over, and that dream of the real Stanley Cup is kaput. The team lost 6-3 to the Avalanche Tuesday night. So what's next for Winnipeg Jets fans? Who will they cheer for now? We asked the CBC's Jim Agapito to ask that hard question.
Aaron Rosenberg.
Okay, Aaron, now that the Jets are gone, I see that you're wearing a hat. Can you tell me what hat you're wearing?
Canucks hat.
Now, are you cheering for the Canucks now that the Jets are out?
Yes. Pretty disappointed, to be honest. They had a good regular season and then didn't show up in the playoffs. I think our best players need to be our best players in the playoffs, and all our strengths during the regular season were kind of our weaknesses in the playoffs. So we need to, keep up what we did in the regular season in the playoffs.
You're sitting beside a friend here that's wearing an Oilers jersey. Do you support the Oilers, and how do you feel about that? Does that cause a rivalry amongst friends?
Maybe if the Canucks get knocked out, I'll have to support the Oilers because they're the other Canadian team. Because obviously I'm not going to cheer for the Leafs.
The fact that your friend basically is cheering for your opposite team of what you're going for, how does that make you feel?
As an Oiler fan living in Winnipeg, I've been dealing with it for years now, so I'm used to it, and I roll with the punches, and one team's knocked out, one team's still going.
What's your full name?
Devin Prout.
Okay, so you've always been an Oiler fan in Winnipeg. Seeing what happened yesterday, how do you feel about that?
It's good to, chirp my friends and my family and all that who are Winnipeg fans, but I always like seeing the Jets do good in the city. It seems like there's always a buzz around the city when they're in playoffs and doing well and all that, so it sucks to see it. They're my second favorite team, but yeah, I don't know. It definitely could have had a better outcome. I've been an Oiler fan since 2006, so we went through the decade of darkness and everything and had 10 years of no playoffs, and I became a fan right before that, so I stuck through it and everything, but now that we are a better team and all that, I love it.
Caleb Couple.
The Jets are out of the playoffs. I've got to ask, who are you going to be cheering for now?
Canucks, I guess.
And why is that?
Like the Jets more, but Canucks is my second favorite.
Is it heartbreaking, the fact that they are out?
Yes.
And what do we need to do to guess win next year?
Get better.
Tabitha Lengel. Oh, I'm very sad. It would have been wonderful for our city. I feel like they've tried so hard and worked so hard. It's hard to lose, no matter what you lose. Losing is hard, so I want to thank them for their hard work and the fun they bring to so many.
Who will you be cheering for now that the Jets are gone?
Well, Toronto is still in, right? That was my dad's favorite team. So I would say Toronto. But at this stage, I just hope that one of the Canadian teams makes it. Given how Alberta and Manitoba have we're cousins, but we don't have such a good relationship. Even if Edmonton won, I would consider it a really good coup. Canadian team. I just think put your efforts into teaching kids hockey. It's a beautiful game, especially now that the violence is less a part of it. Thank you.
Olivia, Joy, and Davey.
I see you're wearing Jets gear. How are you feeling after the loss yesterday?
Sad because I don't get to miss any more school.
Now they're gone. Who will you be cheering for?
Probably the Canucks.
And why is that?
Because it's another Canadian team.
Now that you saw what happened with the Jets and moving forward, what would you like to see them do to win?
Pop more goals in.
Do you have any messages to any of the Winnipeg fans that might be a little upset today that they didn't win?
Get over it.
Wow. Okay, Olivia, I guess you are not wrong. We will manage through it. The CBC's Jim Ancapito asking Winnipeggers who they'll be cheering for now that the Jets are out of the playoffs. We're just about 20 minutes after 6 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. Drew McIver got together with a fellow Ontario musician for this next tune. Here he is with Abby Woodhouse and In the Silver.
Darling.
I'm not one who born under the past, and maybe that's just as well. But as I write this letter, I remember falling under your spell. And they say the love is big, but I swear it's in all the little things, like deep sighs in your eyes falling asleep. It's in the silver of your rings, it's in all the little things.
I stumbled on your letter as I tried to sit and settle on this train. makes me wonder, it won't be long until I'm home again. And I already miss you, and I'm not even gone. 'Cause love is in the little things that'll keep me carrying on. It's in the silver of your rings. It's in all the little things.
So darling, don't you worry, baby, don't you cry. 'Cause really there's no hurry to saying goodbye. And Lord knows I'll miss you, but you're not really gone. 'Cause love is in the little things, letting go and holding on. It's in the sweet smell of autumn
Falling
rain,
on my window pane.
dreaming you'll be home soon.
I'll find you by the light
It's in
of
the silver of your
rings.
It's in all the little things.
Drew McIver and Abby Woodhouse with In the Silver. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Maricusa. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, just about 24 minutes after 6 o'clock. The 33rd Annual Canadian Conference on HIV/AIDS Research wrapped up earlier this week. Scientists and researchers gathered to look at some of the challenges the disease still poses to many people in this country, particularly for marginalized communities. Carmen Logie was conference co-chair. She's also Canada Research Chair in Global Health Equity and Social Justice with Marginalized Populations at the University of Toronto's Factor in Wentash School of Social Work. Carmen joins us on the line now. Hello there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. What about you? When you look at how HIV and AIDS looks like in Canada, I know Manitoba's rate last year we heard was 5 times the national average based on available data. How would you characterize what HIV/AIDS looks like in this country?
Well, I would start off by saying we have about 63,000 people living with HIV in Canada. And largely, it's a story of hope, although, as you mentioned, there are some geographic and population disparities. But we do have really effective antiretroviral therapy. People living with HIV who take HIV medication can live long and healthy lives. And we also know about U equals U, which is undetectable equals untransmissible, meaning when you're taking HIV medication, the virus becomes undetectable and you can't pass it on, so you're not infectious.
You chose the
so
word.
There's a lot of hope.
Yeah, I mean,
Let's start off with the hope.
and hope is sort of the big takeaway from that. Why is that the word that comes to mind for you?
Because I think a lot of times we focus on the inequalities, which we need to, especially as you mentioned, being in Winnipeg. But also that kind of the hope fuels us and makes us want to work together to make sure everybody can realize the benefits of both HIV prevention and care.
The stigma around HIV and AIDS, how does it compare to what it was like when we first discovered this?
It's interesting because I started my journey in HIV in 1994, so it's 30 years as a volunteer on the AIDS floor of a hospital in Toronto called the Wellesley Hospital. And the HIV stigma was very profound then, but we also didn't have great treatment. So I do feel like there's been a bit of a reduction in HIV stigma over time because we have such good treatment. However, what hasn't necessarily reduced is the stigma discrimination around other things, the stigma discrimination around racism, including towards Indigenous and Black communities who are more affected, LGBTQ stigma and homophobia, stigma towards people who use drugs and towards sex workers, and gender inequalities. So we have a long way to go for all of the different kinds of stigma that shape people's risks of HIV.
Are you finding that the access to medications and the access to those resources are easier, or the barriers are much less?
It depends on who you're talking to. So for some communities, such as like Indigenous and Black communities, they still continue to experience mistreatment in healthcare and education systems. So if you look at it as a big pot of soup, there is still HIV stigma in communities and relationships. And then you add into that soup, stigma towards Indigenous people and distrust of healthcare because of mistreatment, which is very a normal response, right? You wouldn't trust people who have treated you badly, and that really is a barrier to people even walking through the door to get an HIV test or to get prevention tools like PrEP. And then, of course, a barrier to going when you're living with HIV and accessing medication. So there's stigma and discrimination are the biggest barriers to realizing all the benefits we have in science.
I still remember when I first, as a non-straight, queer, non-white person, and I went to go see my provider to get pre-exposure prophylaxis PrEP. It was a confusing thing for my healthcare provider saying, "You're the first person who's asked me about this," and this was, I don't know, a decade or so ago. And now it seems like it's a lot easier.
That's great. I mean, it's great that I think that people don't know how courageous it is to go and seek sexual health services when we stigmatize sex in general in this world. So I think there's more awareness of PrEP, but we still have very low engagement with many people who need it.
We just have a minute left here, but I wonder, so going back 33 years ago, what might the next few years or few decades look like in terms of success for you?
I hope that we can remove all the laws criminalizing HIV and also people who use drugs and sex work. So I think we need to think about how can we make the laws based on science, and they've never helped HIV prevention in the past. So I hope we could continue to address racism and that is experienced by Indigenous and other Black and racialized communities, and homophobia as well as HIV stigma. I hope we can all work together to do that.
Carmen, thanks for making time today, and take good care.
Thanks so much.
Carmen Logie is Canada Research Chair in Global Health Equity and Social Justice with Marginalized Populations at the University of Toronto School of Social Work. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. Hello to the folks watching on CBC Television, and hello to the folks streaming on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. I am in for Marcy Marcusa. So far, no major closures or delays to tell you about in your morning commute, but if you do see issues, call our commuter line, 204-788-3093, 204-788-3093. More to come in our next half hour here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Stay tuned. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 6 degrees in downtown Winnipeg. Get set to get wet, though. Rain begins this morning, 10 to 15 millimeters today. 5 to 10 more tonight. A little bit cooler than yesterday, a high of 11. A woman who Peter Nygaard is charged with sexually assaulting has recently been served with a defamation lawsuit. The disgraced fashion designer is suing her for comments she made to CBC News last summer when the charges were announced. CBC I-Team's Caroline Bargoot has the story.
When April Talek heard Winnipeg police had charged Peter Nygaard with sexually assaulting her in 1993, she was thrilled. The Vancouver actress told CBC News it felt like a victory to be heard and believed. A month later, Nygaard sued her and CBC for defamation, claiming her words and our story damaged his reputation and character. Toronto lawyer Gillian Natu believes that can be viewed as a form of witness intimidation, since Telek will have to testify against Nygaard in the criminal trial.
I can't think of another instance where a lawsuit like this has been commenced while the criminal proceedings are ongoing. It does seem to be an example of, or an attempt at, witness intimidation.
An Ontario researcher says defamation lawsuits against women who report sexual violence are on the rise globally. Manitoba doesn't have legislation to put an end to them quickly like in Ontario and BC, but the province says it's exploring options. Nygaard's lawyer didn't answer our questions. Caroline Bargood, CBC News, Winnipeg.
An expert in human trafficking applauds Winnipeg police for their efforts helping take down an organized crime ring. The investigation involved multiple police agencies across the country. It led to the seizure of 30 kilos of cocaine, guns, and millions in cash, cars, and other proceeds of crime. Janet Campbell is president and CEO at the Joyce Smith Foundation.
Where you have drug trafficking, often human trafficking is at play as well. We do see the use of drugs throughout, from luring and grooming to control and manipulation of victims of sex trafficking.
Police say part of the investigation involving sex trafficking is still ongoing, but so far, 14 people have been arrested, including 9 from Winnipeg. A Winnipeg grocery store supervisor has been suspended after allegedly punching a woman accused of shoplifting. It happened late Sunday afternoon at the food fair store on Arlington and Portage. Angela Antoine was waiting to check out when she says an employee accused a First Nations woman of stealing food.
He grabbed her bag and she's refusing to give it up. That's when he just like wound up and punched her. I couldn't believe it was happening right in front of me. And eventually he got her on the ground. There was 3 other guys, I think, that came and pulled him off of her.
Antoine wants the supervisor to be fired and charged with assault. Food fair owner Munther Zeed says the supervisor has been suspended pending a police investigation. Police say no arrests have been made. Winnipeg Transit is poised to award a $9 million contract to an Alberta company that will design and install a hydrogen production station for zero-emission buses. That station will generate hydrogen from methanol. Transit tried to find a way to make hydrogen from water, but that proved too expensive. Aaron Cook manages Transit's transition away from diesel fuel.
This is a technology that came out that was a little bit more cost-effective, proven for cold climate, at a price point that was within our budget.
Producing hydrogen from methanol produces more emissions than making it from water, but Cook says running buses on hydrogen made from methanol still generate 60% less emissions than running buses on diesel fuel. Changes could be coming to left and right turns at a busy downtown Winnipeg intersection this summer. Assiniboine in Maine has been a concern for drivers, for cyclists, and pedestrians. A new report from city engineers recommends 2 changes to how and when drivers can make turns at Assiniboine in Maine. The first is ending right turns from Assiniboine onto Maine. The second, introducing left turn signals for people on Maine turning onto Assiniboine. Councillor Janice Lukes chairs the Public Works Committee.
It's not going to make everyone happy, but it's a pilot, and I'm really focused on protecting the vulnerable road user, so I am supportive of this report.
The second change would also include a ban on left turns during the afternoon rush. The report heads to the Public Works Committee on Tuesday. If the changes get the green light, the city would monitor them and provide an overview of how the pilot went next spring. Riot police are lined up and appear to be preparing to move on the pro-Palestinian protest camp at UCLA in Los Angeles. The number of protesters has grown significantly over the past 24 hours following a police order to disperse. Pro-Palestinian protest camps are now up at least 5 Canadian universities. The latest encampment is on the grounds of the University of Toronto. Like in the U.S., activists are protesting the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza, demanding schools divest from all investments linked to Israel. You can hear the latest on World Report at 7. And Edmonton hockey fans are celebrating.
For the 3rd year in a row, the Edmonton Oilers have eliminated the Los Angeles Kings
Last night, the Oilers beating the Kings in Game 5 of their first-round playoff series. The final score was 4-3. Toronto and Vancouver are still in the playoffs, trying to advance to the second round, and the Leafs will play Boston tonight. Vancouver plays Nashville on Friday. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Do you think they'll change their names to the Los Angeles Princes? Because they're no longer kings.
Okay.
All right, fine. You don't like my stupid
They're
jokes.
out. Let's forget about them. I think I'm going Oilers now.
You think so?
I think I have to.
Okay. Well, we'll see.
What about you?
Is that
you
a
like
geographic
Vancouver?
thing, Heather?
Yeah, I don't know. Is it a geographic thing?
No, not necessarily. No, you know what? I really like Connor McDavid.
Oh, right. Okay, that makes sense. I don't know. I'm still sort of on the fence of I'm joining the bandwagon, right? Like, who?
You're still healing from the loss of the Jets.
I'm still healing. So as I sort of manage my disappointment, I'm like, we'll see. I'm not sure if I'm ready for the next thing yet. So
That's good.
We'll wait.
That's good. You got to take your time. Heal first.
Exactly. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Faith Fundal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence. I'm sitting in for Marcy Marcusa on Information Radio. We're going to speak to Abby Adeyemi, who's been following the weather today. Hello.
Hello again. You know, if you missed it, that beautiful sky, I just did a sky watch for. If you've missed it, it's now gray. It's turned gray now. Before it was like beautiful with a mix of red and, but now it's all gone. It's the sign. If you look up, it tells you that rain is coming. Forecast today in the province, the northern part of the province is going to be seeing light snow. And here in the south, we will get more of like fog patches dissipating. In Winnipeg, it is 6 degrees under cloudy skies. You need to watch out for those fog patches I made mention of. They're going to be dissipating, but the big item on the menu today is the rain, so you might want to grab your umbrellas because the rain is on the way. We're expecting 10 to 15 millimeters with highs reaching 11 degrees for Winnipeg. If we head west to Brandon, it is currently 3 degrees, mostly cloudy. They're seeing some fog also, and it's going to be dissipating this morning, and then rain is expected, totaling also 10 to 15 millimeters, and the highs would get to 9. North in Thompson, it is -1 with some light snow at the moment, and this light snow is going to be ending in the afternoon period, followed by a mix of sun and clouds with highs reaching +5. Further north in Churchill, it is -4 degrees under partly cloudy skies. Mainly cloudy conditions will definitely be what folks will be seeing today, with periods of light snow, and the highs would get to a high of 0. In Dauphin, it is 3 degrees with fog. This fog will be dissipating, also leading to a mix of sun and clouds, becoming cloudy later in the afternoon with rain expected. You should anticipate also 5 to 10 millimeters, high of 11. Gimli is at 2 degrees and it's 2 degrees and it's cloudy. Also, fog patches dissipating as we speak, and then it's going to become cloudy with rain starting early afternoon, and we're expecting 10 to 15 millimeters of rain, high 11. Steinbach is at 7 degrees under cloudy skies. Fog patches will be dissipating also this morning with rain beginning, and then we're looking at about 10 to 15 millimeters of rain and a high of 12. Finally, in Morris, 7 degrees and cloudy. You're seeing some fog, which will be dissipating also as we get into the morning period, and rain starting as well. Anticipate 15 millimeters of rain, a high of 10. Winnipeg, it's currently 6 degrees, cloudy. Rain is expected throughout the day. The highs will be reaching 11. Wet weather continues into the night and tomorrow. So I'll tell you, you need to stay dry.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Corey Funk, the commute.
Yeah, got a call from Brad on the commuter line. He says Wall Street between St. Matthews and Ellis. Looks like there's maybe some film trucks or something doing their thing, and that's got it down to one lane. You kind of go from the far right lane and then it kind of shifts you into the middle lane as you go through there. So may slow down your commute. Try to keep going. Don't try to spot a movie star or anything like that. If you see something else going on out there, though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
20 minutes before 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Faith Fundal. Time now for the Business Digest with Dan McGarvey.
Good morning. The Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion is online and pumping oil to the BC coast. The $34 billion Crown Corporation project will see tankers loaded up and shipping oil around the world by the middle of this month. The project involved building 988 kilometres of new pipeline, 193 kilometres of reactivated pipeline, 12 new pump stations, 19 storage tanks, and 3 new berths at Westridge Marine Terminal in Burnaby. Martin Peltier, Senior Portfolio Manager at Wellington Altus Private Council, says it's going to have a big impact on the economy and for oil producers.
We are able to increase our output and draw down our record level of inventory levels of oil inventory here in Alberta, which is, I read this morning, is about 42 million barrels. So we'll be able to offload that. Also able to reach our record high of output for Canadian oil production up to about 5.3 million barrels a day from TD, as what they've reported.
The pipeline increases the Trans Mountain System's shipping capacity from 300,000 barrels per day to 890,000 barrels per day and will help open up global export markets for Canadian oil. The federal government bought the pipeline, of course, for $4.5 billion back in 2018 to get it completed after some heavy opposition to the project. Loblaw is increasing its payment to shareholders with its first quarter profit and revenue up from a year ago. The parent company of Loblaw's and Shoppers Drug Mart is raising its quarterly dividend to 51.3 cents per share, up from 44.6 cents. The company just reported $13.58 billion in revenue for its first quarter. That's up from $13 billion a year earlier, and this all comes as some shoppers who say they're angry about the company's rising profits and prices are starting a month-long boycott of Loblaw supermarkets this week. In other news, Domino's is trying to tackle people's growing annoyance at being forced to tip more and more everywhere they go these days, with an incentive that pays them back. The pizza chain is launching a new campaign which gives customers money off their next purchase. It's called You Tip, We Tip, which rewards customers with $3 off a future online delivery order. For every $3 or more they tip a Domino's delivery driver. It's a win-win for Domino's because it taps into what consumers are feeling and connects with them, and it makes being a delivery driver an easier sell too. But it also highlights how little pizza delivery drivers get paid in the first place. And finally, the music itself is iconic, the game even more so. 7-Eleven is going retro and giving away 1,800 Tetris consoles to mark that game's 40th anniversary. Tetris, of course, is the puzzle game where you flip and stack falling shapes made from blocks to fit as perfectly into a screen as possible with no gaps. And 7-Eleven have made a handheld Slurpee-shaped version of the game that looks like a cross-sectioned Slurpee with the screen and controls on the flat side. Now, the company's looking to sign more people up for its reward system because only 7-Eleven Canada Rewards members can win one through a contest open from now till June 25th. I'll keep my fingers crossed. For CBC Radio, I'm Dan McGarvey.
Thanks very much, Dan. Yeah, fingers crossed indeed. We're at 16 minutes before 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. Now, watching the NHL playoffs is pretty straightforward, something to do on TV. But the day may come when that changes. Sports leagues are slowly beginning to make deals to air some games exclusively on streaming services. More from the CBC's Jason Osler.
Canadians continue to remember one of our most cherished voices of hockey.
Stand up and cheer, everybody!
When legendary broadcaster Bob Cole died last week, it brought back memories for many of a time when we all watched one broadcast on TV in the same way, including Sidney Crosby, who reminisced on Hockey Night in Canada.
You were the voice of hockey, and like so many, my family crowded around the TV to listen to your calls.
But times have changed, and there are now too many streaming services and entertainment options to list. Canadians will soon need to subscribe to one of them to watch some NHL games. In the league's first exclusive broadcast deal with a digital-only streaming service in Canada, next season's Monday night regular season games will only air on Amazon Prime Video. It's part of a larger trend in the industry. The National Football League began airing a few select games on a streaming service.
Melissa, start game kicks off in about 5 minutes exclusively on Peacock. If you haven't done it yet,
get on Peacock.
Fans of Major League Soccer, a league with 3 Canadian teams, can still watch some games on cable TV, but people who want to watch every game can only do so with a special Apple TV package. Meanwhile, the New York Times and Reuters are reporting FIFA is close to an agreement with Apple to air the 2025 Club World Cup exclusively on its service. Vijay Settler is a marketing instructor at York University's Schulich School of Business with an expertise in sports.
The fact that the rights for different sports leagues are now spread out across various services, it's now created a situation where, while the unbundling of the cable TV package has kind of happened, now it's almost like we're seeing people having to buy channels again.
Except it's not a channel, it's an entire subscription service.
These services, which are driven by these larger tech companies, are helping drive up the rights fees for the content because they have such a desire for this content to drive their other businesses.
Meaning companies like Amazon and Apple can sell their other products to you once they have you in their broadcasting ecosystem. For the leagues, it's an opportunity to make more money on rights fees and expand their footprint. But for fans, it could mean a future where you have to subscribe to a bunch of different services to follow your team. I hit the streets to see how people feel about that idea, and right now, it's a tough sell.
I would maybe pay for like one service if a team I really liked exclusively went to that, but when you're talking about multiple different streaming services, probably not.
Do you watch any sports on TV?
The NHL, the Penguins, and then the World Cup. Yeah, I would just watch it on whatever service I already had. I wouldn't pay for another one.
No, I watch everything.
How many different services would you be willing to subscribe specifically to just to be able to watch some of the games of your favorite team?
Probably up to 3. Money is a big issue as well.
It would depend on the services, how much they cost. I don't know, I wouldn't pay a whole lot, I don't think. I wouldn't be happy about it, but yeah, I'm not going to pay a whole bunch to watch one game on one night.
Vijay Settler isn't surprised at the reaction.
Now I think more and more people are going to be faced with making these kinds of decisions, and it's not fun, especially with the rising costs of everything. Expenses are going up, but salaries are staying the same. If they push people too much, they're going to lose a lot of fans.
There can be advantages, though. Settler says it gives fans the ability to subscribe and unsubscribe anytime they want, depending on what they want to watch and when. Something he's done with One Soccer, a streaming service that shows some Canadian team games exclusively.
I've subscribed to that service, and then I've unsubscribed to it. I only subscribe to it to watch national team matches. So I'm not going to pay for something I don't want.
Settler says Canadian sports fans don't need to worry about doing this immediately. The vast majority of what you want to watch remains in the traditional places, but he expects leagues to continue dipping their toe in the waters and offering only some games exclusively on streaming services. For CBC Radio, I'm Jason Osler.
There are many people who bring success, innovation, accomplishment, and charity to our community. We'd like you to help us meet some of the best. CBC Future 40 will honor 10 Manitobans under 40 making a difference. Help us discover the inspiring people in our province by nominating a shining star in your community today. For details, visit cbc.ca/future40mb.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
Coming up to 10 minutes before 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, I'm Faith Fundal. Magandang umaga. Good morning, Manitoba. I'm sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. Janet Stewart will join us in our last half hour of the program to talk about what the topic of the day is for the call-in portion of Radio Noon, so stay tuned for that conversation. Also coming up in our next half hour, a close friend of a Winnipeg man who was killed in Toronto is now raising funds in his name, with proceeds going to the Canadian Autism Foundation. We'll hear his story coming up after your 7 o'clock World Report. We are expecting rain later today and some fog that will dissipate as the day progresses, about 15 millimeters in the forecast, and a temperature high of 11 degrees, so be aware of that. Statistics Canada has a new report out highlighting a growing trend in house buying. More and more Canadian baby boomers are transferring their property wealth to their kids to help them buy houses. They are co-owning homes or underwriting mortgages. And for those who don't have parental help, wealth inequality is becoming more entrenched. Moshe Lander is a professor in economics at Concordia University in Montreal. We've reached him in Calgary. Hi, Moshe.
Good morning.
Okay, talk more about this intergenerational wealth transfer that's happening. What are you seeing?
Sure. So intergenerational wealth transfers have been going on since the beginning of time, right? Parents die, they leave their wealth to their kids. They die, they leave it to their kids, and so on. What's happening, though, is that baby boomers are realizing that, hey, we're probably living longer than any generation before us. The idea of living to 90 or even 100 isn't inconceivable. And so if baby boomers had kids in their 20s or 30s, those kids might have to wait until their 60s or 70s before they see the wealth that the boomers accumulated in their lifetime. The biggest complaint that the kids of boomers, if not the grandchildren of boomers, have is that they can't get onto the housing ladder because the down payment is so huge compared to what it was back in the boomers' time where you needed 2% down and you can get a mortgage. So boomers have realized, well, why wait to die? Why don't we take the great wealth that we've accumulated and the wealth that we've built up through home ownership over the course of our lives and hand that over to our kids? And so what we can do then is we can give them the down payment, or we can even go so far as to be their partner in buying a home. And we bring with us a lifetime of credit scores and responsibility and wealth that can help convince a bank to get our kids onto the housing market.
And is that surprising when you see that transference of wealth in that way that you've described?
It's just showing the ingenuity of people to transfer wealth and the means through which they'll do it. So I guess it was kind of inevitable that, boomers back it's before my time, right? It's my parents. But they tell me stories of they needed a couple $1,000 to get a mortgage on a home for $20,000 or $30,000. There's no way that you could even have $30,000 and get a home these days as a down payment. So, it's become an impossible situation for generations after. And so any parent would probably want to do anything that they could for their kid. If this is a way then to do it, you get to do it in your lifetime. You get to see your kids happy. And the idea of not having to wait until you die seems like a great way of experiencing the joy that you can bring to your kids of your lifetime's hard work.
What about the children of lifelong boomer renters? Because perhaps there may be boomers who did not partake in that kind of wealth. What's happening with those folks?
Yeah, so the issue there is if you chose to be a renter, you just didn't want the responsibility of lawn maintenance and snow removal and leaky roofs and things like that, then you probably were able to take some of your wealth and channel it into other vehicles, whether it's the stock market or other sorts of investments. You still would probably be able to help your kids in this case. You just have to cash in whatever those investments are. But if you involuntarily were a renter that for whatever reason in your life you just weren't able to come up with the money to acquire a home for yourself, you're not going to be able to help your kids then, because when the bank says, what do you bring to the table, it's not age that's an attractive asset to the bank. It's wealth accumulation, and it's a lifetime's credit score. So if you don't have those things, the next thing you know, your kids are looking and saying, well, how do we get onto the ladder then? We can't come up with the down payment ourselves. And so you almost have then that it's renters beget renters and homeowners beget homeowners. And so you now have a social immobility that could happen in society that's based on yet another factor. In this case, it's what was your status in life as a homeowner or renter.
What do the fancy computers say about what the impact of this exacerbation of the wealth divide in this country? What might we see 5, 10, maybe even 15 years from now?
Well, the thing with owning a home is that it's a pretty good investment, right? So because it's a good investment, that means then that if homeowners are begetting homeowners and renters are begetting renters, then renters are never going to be able to accumulate wealth in the way that homeowners can. And so if we're talking in society now about one percenters and the great disparity between wealth or between income among different groups of society, this is only going to get worse then, because renters are not going to have that ability to, A, generate wealth. They can't own a home. And even whatever wealth they are managing to accumulate is not going to go up in value as fast as a home is going up in value. So you're just going to see then that gap is going to widen even more. And so we're going to be talking about the 10th of the 1%ers or the 100th of 1%ers. At some point, that becomes untenable where you have just this super elite class that controls the vast majority of wealth. And if you think it's bad now, then 10, 15, 20 years, we could be talking about some real disparity.
Who is it up to? to do something about this, to try and address these future social issues?
Well, it would be the responsibility of government, but the problem is that the government is going to be quickly captured by the wealthy, whether that's the wealthy are going to finance the politicians that are going to protect them, or whether it's going to be that the wealthy are more likely to vote in an election, and therefore in a democracy where you have to listen to the voters' will, if the voters that are voting saying protect my wealth, then it's possible that politicians are going to have a difficult time taking the altruistic stance saying, listen, I don't care what any of you say, this is what's good for society. But you and I have spoken on a variety of shows here in Winnipeg that housing affordability is really the issue at the end of the day. And so wealth inequality is just a symptom of that housing unaffordability problem. And it really then comes down to municipalities that need to find a way to onboard huge amounts of housing in a short amount of time. And then a lot of this problem goes away then, because you don't necessarily have to rely on boomers then to finance your home purchase. If you lower the minimum down payment, which was originally raised because that was the way that we were going to control the housing market, you don't have to go back to 1950 style, give me $50 and you can have a home, but you certainly don't need 30 to 35% down payment either. I think there's a happy area that's somewhere in between those two, where all of a sudden people can finance their home purchase on their own and work within their existing income.
It's always good to have you on the program. Moshe, thank you. Take good care.
Anytime.
Moshe Lander, Senior Lecturer in Economics at Concordia University in Montreal. We reached him this morning in Calgary. Just about 3 minutes before the top of the hour here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Let's head over to our CBC Winnipeg local news desk, and Heather Wells joining us with a look at news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, an expert in human trafficking applauds Winnipeg police for their efforts helping take down an organized crime ring. The investigation involved multiple police agencies across the country and led to the seizure of 30 kilos of cocaine, guns, and millions in cash. Janet Campbell at the Joy Smith Foundation says where you have drug trafficking, human trafficking is also often at play. And changes could be coming to left and right-hand turns at a busy downtown Winnipeg intersection this summer. Assiniboine in Maine has been a concern for drivers, for cyclists, and for pedestrians. A new report from city engineers recommends 2 changes to how and when drivers can make turns at that intersections. We'll give you those details coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells joining us from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. We're expecting rain today, up to 15 millimeters. That's what Environment Canada is calling for. And depending on where you are, there may be some foggy patches as well that will dissipate as the morning progresses. Temperature high of 11 degrees if you're trying to figure out what you're going to wear today. Still to come in our next hour of the program, we will meet the winners of our Mom Jokes competition, who will share their jokes here and get some advice from a local comedian before sharing them live on stage. That's still to come. Also, after a World Report, after a Winnipeg businessman was killed in Toronto, friends rallied around his family. One of those friends has now started a fundraiser with proceeds going to the Canadian Autism Foundation. We'll speak with him more about that at about 7:10. I am Faith Fundal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Goodbye to the folks watching on CBC Television. But good news, you can continue to stream us on our YouTube page at CBC Manitoba. Brad Lillies is our streaming producer. Corey Funk, our studio director. Abby Adeyemi on the controls. Lots to come after World Report. Stay tuned.
Today on The Current.
My favorite flavor combination at the ice cream store was orange sherbet and Reese's peanut butter cups.
Many chefs see cooking as an art, but Ariel Johnson argues that when it comes to making food that tastes good, the science of flavor is just as important. And she has dedicated her academic career to that subject, coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. A tense situation is unfolding at UCLA in Los Angeles right now. Riot police are starting to remove the protest barricades there. They are firing flashbangs over the large crowd of demonstrators. After yesterday's clashes between pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli protesters, everyone was ordered to leave. Instead, hundreds of people showed up to demonstrate. Freelance journalist Steve Futterman is at UCLA campus, and he joins me now. Steve, what is happening there right now?
Well, right now the police have moved in. They have made some arrests, but they're primarily tearing down the barricades that have been set up on either end of the encampment. There are metal barricades, and then there are these wooden, basically plywood barricades that have been set up, and they are tearing them down. Now, occasionally you'll hear a number of loud noises in the background. These are the flashbangs, you just heard one there, that police are putting up. And they are also used at some point, I believe it was likely tear gas, but it was some sort of irritant that they set off when the protesters were not cooperating. But this is not peaceful. These are not peaceful arrests. The protesters are not going peacefully. They are not peacefully surrendering like we've seen at other locations. So these are confrontations, and this is going to be a very, very, I would say, long and very nasty incursion by law enforcement as they tear down this encampment.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Steve Futterman reporting from UCLA in Los Angeles. Pro-Palestinian encampments are being built at several Canadian universities, including UBC, University of Ottawa, and McGill. Now, the University of Toronto. Tents were set up there overnight. The area is being patrolled by campus security. And my World Report co-host John Northcott is at the protest site. John, what are you seeing?
Marcia, I can tell you there was chanting and holding up of banners earlier this morning when I got here. What has just happened, in fact, was that there was a rush of about 60 or 70 of the students to the fence. Now, they're trying to maintain openings in the fence. And that is why they are now here. There are some security on scene, but they are just monitoring the fence. So we're just kind of watching the situation, but it was remarkable to see the rush of students when it looked like there was some activity involving the fence itself. Remember, the fence put up by the university, they say, to protect this green patch here, King's College Circle, for the convocation that's due to take place in a month.
What response has there been from university faculty or officials?
Marcia, worth noting two different groups in that. Earlier in the week, a release put out by the administration saying they would not tolerate any kind of encampment like the sort that we're seeing here, pointing out that while the university is a welcoming place to members of the public, it is essentially a private property. That's a different story, though, from what we're hearing from faculty. And a release going out this morning, quote, university students must be allowed to protest, one of the central humanitarian crises of our time, without fear of disciplinary measures. You can go on in this very long release in support of the students, saying this: our students deserve to be able to protest without being smeared by accusations of anti-Semitism. And they go on to make further comments about their support, not only for the activities of the students, but for the goals of the students as well.
All right. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
John Northcott at the U of T campus. Details are coming quickly this morning, and that statement from U of T faculty was from three specific groups: Jewish Faculty Network, Faculty for Palestine, and the Health Workers Alliance for Palestine. We've also just heard from university administration. It says the U of T remains open today. The school respects the rights of its community to assemble and protest, but they must not interfere with students' ability to learn. The Israel-Hamas war is also prompting protests beyond college campuses. Colombia is now the largest country to sever ties with Israel, and it is going one step further. It is calling Israel's government genocidal. Freelance reporter Manuel Rueda has more from Bogota.
Thousands of people cheered for President Gustavo Petro as he announced his new policy towards Israel. Petro, a socialist, has long been at odds with Israel over the siege of Gaza. On Wednesday, he accused Israel's government and its leader of being genocidal. The extermination of an entire people cannot happen while we look away, Petro said. If Palestine dies, humanity dies. The president's statements were rejected by Israel's foreign ministry, which published a message on X accusing Petro of being a Hamas supporter and an anti-Semite. President Petro's decision to break ties with Israel has been controversial in Colombia, with some critics arguing that it goes against the South American nation's interests. Colombia has long depended on Israel for military hardware, such as machine guns and fighter jets. Jorge Restrepo, a political analyst in Bogotá, also says that by breaking ties with Israel, Colombia is picking sides in the conflict, and the move could be counterproductive for the country.
In terms of pursuing the cause of Palestine, it breaks up with that tradition of the Colombian foreign relations, which is to support and mediate in several peace efforts.
Colombia is the third country in Latin America to break ties with Israel since the war in Gaza broke out. Belize and Bolivia ended relations last year. Manuel Rueda for CBC News, Bogotá.
In Israel, families of hostages still being held captive by Hamas are blocking the main highway in Tel Aviv. They are demanding the immediate release of their loved ones. That could happen if Israel and Hamas agree to a ceasefire deal. A senior Hamas official spoke to the AFP news agency. He says Hamas has had a negative response to this deal, but discussions have not stopped. Hamas wants Israeli troops to completely withdraw from Gaza, but Israel's prime minister says there will be still a ground operation in Rafah, even if there is a ceasefire. The European Union is offering a €1 billion aid package for Lebanon. It will go to strengthen border controls and stop the flow of asylum seekers crossing the Mediterranean. Here's European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen.
We are committed to maintain legal pathways open to Europe and resettle refugees from Lebanon to the European Union. At the same time, we count on your good cooperation to prevent illegal migration and to combat migrant smuggling.
The EU has offered similar deals to Egypt and Tunisia to strengthen their borders. Donald Trump could face more fines stemming from his criminal hush money trial today. That is what the prosecutors are asking the judge overseeing the case. The additional fines would be for violating a gag order that is supposed to stop him from talking about witnesses and jurors. It would amount to $4,000 in total. Trump has already been fined $9,000 for being in contempt of court. A ride-sharing app is looking to reshape the way the industry pays its drivers. Hover launches today in the Toronto market. Philippe de Montigny has more on their new business model.
Circling Union Station in the heart of downtown Toronto, Uber drivers like 62-year-old Ijaz Butt gather to fight for better working conditions and higher pay.
I'm surviving because my children are helping me. Otherwise, not possible.
A new ride-hailing app launching in the Greater Toronto area is looking to change that. Hover charges drivers a monthly fee, allowing them to keep the entire fare. Founder and CEO Harrison Ammon.
Drivers pay $20 a month, and because the drivers are paying that membership, we can charge a little bit less.
Driver Ijaz Butt says competition is positive for consumers, but in a market dominated by Uber and Lyft, attracting them could be a challenge.
Customer only change if they're not satisfied with customer service.
And to win them over, Hover will have to quickly prove it's a better and more reliable alternative than the existing duopoly. Philippe de Montigny, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. If you are looking for tools to talk about the day's big stories with the little people in your life, check out cbckidsnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Tiny humans are the best. Magandang umaga. Good morning, Manitoba. Faith Fondal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence. I'm sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. In this hour of the program, comedians at the Winnipeg Comedy Festival performed at Stony Mountain Penitentiary yesterday. We're going to hear from one of them about how it went. That's in our next half hour of the program. Also ahead, a Manitoba mom says, for children with special needs, respite and other specialized services are lacking in rural Manitoba. And now she's on a mission to change that. We'll hear about that. First, though, a close friend of a Winnipeg man killed in Toronto is now raising funds in his name, with proceeds going to the Canadian Autism Foundation. We'll hear from him coming up here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. And hello as well to the folks streaming us on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Our streaming producer today is Brad Lillies. To our CBC Winnipeg local news desk, Heather Wells is there with a look at news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a woman who Peter Nygaard is charged with sexually assaulting has recently been served with a defamation lawsuit. The disgraced fashion designer is suing April Telek for comments she made to CBC News last summer when the charges were announced. Toronto lawyer Gillian Nachu believes this can be viewed as a form of witness intimidation because Telek will have to testify against Nygaard in the criminal trial. We'll hear more coming up. And Winnipeg Transit is poised to award a $9 million contract to an Alberta company to design and install a hydrogen production station for zero-emission buses. We'll tell you more in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Abby Adeyemi is our technician, also watching the weather. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, we're experiencing relatively mild morning for now in Winnipeg, and the temperature is sitting comfortably at 6 degrees. The mercury hasn't moved much. However, it's not going to be sunshine and clear skies. The clouds have actually rolled in, setting the scene for a typical autumn day. Today's forecast calls for cloudy skies with fog patches dissipating. We're getting calls about that already. Now, as the morning progresses, rain is on the horizon. We're expecting around 10 to 15 millimeters of rain to fall throughout the day. So be sure to grab your rain gear before leaving the house. The wind is also part of a place shifting from the southeast as the day unfolds. Now, despite the rain, the temperatures will be climbing to a high of 11. Tonight, the rain will continue with an additional 5 to 10 millimeters expected overnight. If we check out Brandon is currently foggy, but it is clearing up as we speak and rain is expected. Thompson is also seeing light snow, which is about to end. Churchill is mostly cloudy, seeing some light snow at -4. Dauphin is foggy at the moment, though it's going to clear later, then clouds and rain. Gimli is at 3 degrees, foggy also clearing right up, and then we will be seeing cloudy day and rain coming. Steinbach is at 8 degrees. It's going to rain later, but for now we're seeing some fog. Morris is foggy clearing up right now, and then rain. To sum it up, we're expecting cloudy skies with fog dissipating, and then rain will be starting. We're looking at a high of 11 today.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Corey Funk, watching the commute. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, just really one issue I've heard of so far on the commute from Brad. Wall Street between St. Matthews and Ellis kind of goes down to one lane for just that block there, just because it looks like, Brad said, it looks like maybe film trucks or something doing their thing, closing down a bunch of lanes. So you kind of start in the right lane, and then it kind of funnels you into the middle lane. So look over that. Might slow down your commute if you're heading down Wall Street this morning. If you see anything else going on, though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. Let me know. I know there's some foggy patches out there, so give me an update on that. I'm curious what you're seeing, not seeing. 204-788-3093.
14 minutes after 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. 8 First Nation communities along the shores of Lake Winnipeg are suing governments for damage caused by sewage spills. The lawsuit against the city, province, and federal government is seeking $4 billion. They say the city has been dumping raw sewage in the Red River for decades, and it floats into Lake Winnipeg. The latest spill was more than 200 million litres in February. Chief of Broken Head Ojibwe Nation Gordon Blue Sky says the sewage has harmed its community's fisheries and people can't swim in the lake or drink the water.
We've been watching the steady decline and the health of Lake Winnipeg, and we need to stop, and we need to hold these governments to account and say, well, we need to start having action towards protecting her and protecting her for a future, not just for Manitoba First Nations people, but for all Manitobans.
The CBC's Cameron McLean spoke with Manitoba's Minister of Environment and Climate Change. Here is what Tracy Schmidt had to say.
Yeah, well, certainly, I'm unable to comment specifically on any matters that are before the courts. But I will say that, our government is serious and committed to protecting the health of Lake Winnipeg and of all of our waterways across Manitoba.
They want the city to do a number of things to ensure that this doesn't happen again. They want the city and the province instead to properly maintain the city's sewer systems. Is your government looking at doing anything more to help the city, for example, with replacing the combined sewer system or anything to do with upgrading and maintaining its sewer system?
Well, I can share that we're absolutely committed to working with the City of Winnipeg and municipalities across Manitoba on their water and wastewater issues. We're a collaborative government. We're open to working with the City of Winnipeg, and we have been working with the City of Winnipeg. We're very proud of our $10 million funding announcement that we made shortly after the most recent spill in February to help the City of Winnipeg improve their wastewater infrastructure. And we'll also soon be introducing a legislation to strengthen the Environment Act to be able to better respond to these sort of situations.
What sort of changes are being made, and how will that help in this situation?
Yeah, unfortunately, Cameron, I'm not able to get into those details because we haven't tabled that legislation yet, but we think that it is one of the tools in the toolbox that we have to protect Lake Winnipeg. And so we feel that the changes will strengthen the Environment Act and make the province be able to better respond and better help municipalities.
And what do you respond to the allegations that some of the First Nations leaders are making regarding the harm that they said that they've suffered as a result of this? They say that they can't swim in the lake, they can't drink the water, they're afraid to eat the fish. What's your response?
Yeah, well, I can say that Lake Winnipeg is an important resource for all Manitobans. I know that Manitobans across our province have concerns about Lake Winnipeg, not just about those recreational activities, but also about fishing. We know that Lake Winnipeg is important to the economy of Manitoba. And one thing I do know is that we all want the same thing. So we're happy to continue those discussions, whether that's with First Nations, whether that's with other municipalities in and around the lake, and with all Manitobans to figure out how we can work together to find the best way forward.
Tracy Schmidt is Manitoba's Minister of Environment and Climate Change. She was speaking with the CBC's Cameron McLean yesterday.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world, staying on top of stories around the globe, and connected close to home. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want and where you want on Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1, local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
Coming up to 19 minutes after 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. Now, CBC is looking to highlight leaders, success stories, and changemakers under the age of 40 in our province. You might know someone, perhaps it's you, who is giving back to Manitobans and making our province's future a little brighter. We're looking to highlight the top 10 young folks under 40 and over 18 who have a passion for Manitoba and are working to make a difference in all sorts of ways. You can nominate them or yourself for a CBC Manitoba Future 40 Award. Visit cbc.ca/future40mb. Nominations are accepted until tomorrow at midnight. So again, cbc.ca/future40mb to nominate someone who you think is making a difference. Top 10, we're going to be highlighting the top 10 young folks under 40 and over 18 for a CBC Manitoba Future 40 Award. Visit cbc.ca/future40mb. Juno nominee Maya Davies pays tribute to her mom on her latest song. It recognizes all the work she did to care for her growing up, even as Maya dealt with feelings of isolation. This is Maya Davies with Lift Me Up.
I don't wanna be alone anymore. Not something I can admit easily. Stay at home and get anxious, or go out and think everyone here is looking at me. I've got nobody to call, no one who cares if I'm around at all. I don't wanna live in dreamland snapshots. I remember my mom told me I deserve something good, something unconditional. I don't really know what happened on the way for me to feel so invisible. I wish that I could fly away, or that you could give me a reason to stay. I don't wanna live in dreamland snapshots. Close my eyes, I'm gone. I wanna be higher than an airplane, higher than the stars, holding on to nothing. Lift me up, higher than the first time I felt I was in love. I'm ready to let go. Lift me up, higher than an airplane, higher than the stars. I'm tired of being a human on the ground. Nothing really gets any easier, just the way I talk myself to sleep. Life has got a different feel here in my cloud. I'm so far out of reach. I've got nobody to call, no one who cares if I'm around at all. I don't wanna live in dreamland snapshots. Close my eyes, I'm gone. I wanna be higher than an airplane, higher than the stars, holding on to nothing. Lift me up, higher than the first time I felt I was in love. I'm ready to let go. Lift me up, higher than an airplane, higher than the stars. I'm tired of being a human on the ground. I just need to believe in something good, something that takes me up. Ooh, I wanna be higher than an airplane, higher than the stars, holding on to nothing. Lift me up, higher than the first time I thought I was in love. I'm ready to let go. Lift me up. I don't wanna fight gravity tonight. Lift me up. But I'm only human. I don't wanna fight gravity tonight. But I'm only human. I don't wanna fight gravity tonight. But I'm only human. But I'm only human. Higher than an airplane, higher than the stars.
Out of Montreal, that was Maya Davies with Lift Me Up.
Mega laughs, mega shows recorded for CBC Jam, and at least 5 comedians per show. That's mega value for your money. The Winnipeg Comedy Festival is back April 30th to May 5th, and CBC is a proud sponsor. Catch Canadian performers Anne Pornell from The Great Canadian Baking Show, Lauren Ash from Superstore, and live tapings of The Debaters. The Winnipeg Comedy Festival, uplifting Canadian comedy. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
Coming up to 25 minutes after 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. And we're going to meet the winners of our Mom Jokes competition, sharing their jokes here and also to get some advice from a local comedian before they have to share them live on stage. That's coming up in about 20 minutes' time. Stay tuned for that. If you're trying to figure out what to wear today, we are expecting up to 15 millimeters of rain. That will begin soon. A bit of fog as well that will dissipate as the morning progresses. A temperature high of 11 degrees. We'll keep you up to date if that changes. We're going to head over to our CBC National Sports Desk, and Scott Regier joining us now. Good morning. Hello.
Hey there, Faith.
We're going to begin with hockey, where we know at least one Canadian team going to the second round.
Hooray!
Yay!
Yeah. Edmonton's the team, Faith, after the Oilers eliminated LA last night. The Oilers did it in just 5 games, 1 fewer than it took them last year and 2 fewer than the year before that, when they also ousted the Kings. Edmonton was perfect in this series on the penalty kill and scored about half the time while their opponents were busy killing penalties, much to the delight of their coach, Chris Knobloch.
That was the difference in the series. I think it'd be pretty naive not to say that special teams was a huge impact on the series. You know, you look at our penalty kill, I believe we were 12 for 12, and then the power play, 11, 12, 13 power play goals. That's a huge difference. 5-on-5, it looks like they had the advantage, but the difference definitely was the special teams.
It was Knobloch's 20th wedding anniversary last night, Faith. The traditional gift for the 20th is China, and it's not a stretch to say this Oilers team is no longer as fragile as it has been in the past and could well be the one to end Canada's 30-plus year Cup drought. Meantime, in the Professional Women's Hockey League, Toronto looks like the best bet to claim the inaugural Walter Cup. Led by Natalie Spooner and her 2 goals, Toronto clinched first place heading into the playoffs last night. And as a result of the PWHL's unique rules, they will be able to pick the team that they play against.
Bombers lost a legendary player this week.
Yeah, in the 80s and 90s, Faith, Lyle Bauer was one of the league's best offensive linemen. Part of 3 Grey Cup championship teams, Bauer later went on to become president and CEO. Lyle Bauer, after 2 decades fighting throat cancer, passed away, Faith, at the age of 65. He is being remembered by many for his toughness, for his generosity, and by Winnipeg's current general manager, Kyle Walters, as a man that may have saved the franchise.
Like a lot of CFL teams at various points in their history, they've had some tough economic times, and Lyle was the president for 10 years and kind of kept it afloat and was able to keep it going through tough times. And now we're seeing sort of the fruits of all of that hard work by so many people during those tough times to keep the organization up and running.
Many in Winnipeg and around the country are thankful for Lyle Bauer, not just for what he's done for the Bombers team, but for what he's done for others dealing with the cancer that he dealt with. Lyle Bauer establishing the Never Alone Foundation in support of others, a testament to his character. Lyle Bauer, surrounded by his family and friends in Kelowna, BC, passing away this week. He will be missed.
Always good to have you. Thanks very much, and we'll talk to you soon. Take good care.
Sounds good.
Scott Regehr from your CBC National Sports Desk.
Our community.
Those who shape this place come from all walks of life.
Some of us you hear every day.
And others are working hard to make Manitoba a better place.
The movers and shakers.
The change makers. The people making a difference.
And CBC Manitoba is where you'll hear their stories.
CBC Winnipeg News at 6.
Information radio.
Up to speed.
Radio News. CBC.ca/Manitoba.
Watch, listen, experience Manitoba.
28 minutes after 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. Still to come on the program, after struggling to find childcare for her autistic son, a Manitoba woman has made it her mission to make childcare more accessible for parents with neurodivergent kids. We'll hear details of that conversation in our next half hour of the program. Stay tuned for that. First, though, Corey Funk joining us for an update on the commute for this Thursday morning. So far, hello.
Hello. Yes, really only one issue I've heard of so far this morning from Brad. Wall Street between St. Matthews and Ellis. Down to 1 lane. You kind of are in the far right lane is the one that's open, then it kind of moves you into the middle lane for a little while. Looks like maybe there's a film cruise or something going on is what Brad said. So look out for that. Might slow down your commute on Wall Street this morning. Other than that, I know it's been foggy out there, I've been hearing, so I'm curious how that's impacting your commute on the highways. Haven't heard from anyone yet, but if you want to give me an update on that or anything else you're seeing, if you're walking, biking, driving, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Corey Funk is our studio director here on the program. Abby Adiemi is our technician. Hello to the folks streaming us on our CBC Manitoba YouTube page. Brad Lillies is our streaming producer today. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. Still to come in our next half hour, we're going to meet the winners of our Mom Jokes competition. They're going to share their jokes here. and also get some advice from a local comedian, of course, before sharing them live on stage. Stay tuned for that very funny conversation. It'll be fun, I promise. It's coming up in our next half hour after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's still 6 degrees and cloudy in Winnipeg. Get set for rain, though, starting this morning, continuing all the way through to tonight, 10 to 15 millimeters today, with a high of 11. A woman who Peter Nygaard is charged with sexually assaulting has recently been served with a defamation lawsuit. The disgraced fashion designer is suing her for comments she made to CBC News last summer when the charges were announced. CBC I-Team's Caroline Bargout has details.
When April Talek heard Winnipeg police had charged Peter Nygaard with sexually assaulting her in 1993, she was thrilled. The Vancouver actress told CBC News it felt like a victory to be heard and believed. A month later, Nygaard sued her and CBC for defamation, claiming her words and our story damaged his reputation and character. Toronto lawyer Gillian Natu believes that can be viewed as a form of witness intimidation, since Telek will have to testify against Nygaard in the criminal trial.
I can't think of another instance where a lawsuit like this has been commenced while the criminal proceedings are ongoing. It does seem to be an example of or an attempt at witness intimidation.
An Ontario researcher says defamation lawsuits against women who report sexual violence are on the rise globally. Manitoba doesn't have legislation to put an end to them quickly like in Ontario and BC, but the province says it's exploring options. Nygaard's lawyer didn't answer our questions. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Police are investigating after a Winnipeg grocery store supervisor allegedly punched a woman. It happened late Sunday afternoon at the food fair on Arlington and Portage. Angela Antoine was waiting to check out when an employee accused a First Nations woman of stealing food. Antoine says the supervisor punched the woman, which split her lip.
The little boy saw his mother, like the person that's supposed to protect him, get knocked out by some guy. I can't imagine what that little boy was thinking at the time or what he's thinking now.
The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs has cut business ties with Food Fair. Food Fair owner Munther Zeed says the supervisor has been suspended pending that police investigation. Police say no arrests have been made. Winnipeg police have helped break up a big illicit drug ring they also say had its tentacles in extortion and sex trafficking. The investigation involved multiple police agencies across the country and led to the arrest of 14 people, including 9 from Winnipeg. Janet Campbell at the Joy Smith Foundation says criminal networks that traffic in drugs and guns often traffic in people as well.
When you see projects like this where these warrants are being executed in communities across our city and in very, very nice neighborhoods, it gives pause to think about the prevalence of human trafficking that is happening in our community.
The investigation led to the seizure of $1.7 million in cash, 30 kilograms of cocaine, and a dozen vehicles, including a Rolls-Royce valued at $450,000. Winnipeg has chosen an Alberta company to design and install a hydrogen production station for zero-emission buses. The station will make hydrogen from methanol. Transit tried to find a way to make hydrogen from water, but that ended up being too expensive. Aaron Cook manages Transit's transition away from diesel fuel.
If a more affordable, lower carbon version of hydrogen comes available with some investment in Manitoba in the future, it's something that we would like to consider transitioning to.
Producing hydrogen from methanol produces more emissions than making it from water, but Cook says running buses on hydrogen made from methanol still generates 60% less emissions than running buses on diesel fuel. Pro-Palestinian protest camps are now up at least 5 Canadian universities. The latest encampment is on the grounds of the University of Toronto. Similar protest camps remain in place at the UBC campus in Vancouver and at Montreal's McGill University. Like in the U.S., activists here are protesting the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza, demanding the schools divest from all investments linked to Israel. You can hear the latest on this story as well as other national and international news on World Report at 8. A report before Winnipeg City Hall recommends changes to how drivers can make turns at Assiniboine and Main this summer. The report advises making 2 changes. The first, ending right turn lanes from Assiniboine onto Main Street. The second, introducing left turn signals for people on Main turning onto Assiniboine. It comes following cyclist and pedestrian safety concerns at that intersection. Councillor Janice Lukes chairs the Public Works Committee.
We don't want to shut Assiniboine down completely. We're not doing that. We are doing a pilot, and we're changing the timing on lights. We're changing the ability so that you turn on an arrow versus whenever you want, that it's restricting it, and we're restricting some turns.
The report goes before Tuesday's Public Works Committee. If councillors approve these changes, the city would monitor them and provide an overview of how the pilot went next year. You can find more news updated throughout your day. All you have to do is head to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
It's Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Aaron Broman there as well, Megan Ketchison and Darren Bernhardt this morning. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, everywhere on the CBC Listen app, and of course on our CBC Manitoba streaming page, YouTube page. So many things people can see and hear us. Abby Adiemi is watching the weather. Hello.
Oh, well, good morning once again, my good friend. Today is going to be more like a mix. The north is seeing light snow and the southern parts of the province is seeing fog patches dissipating. But in Winnipeg here, where the mercury hasn't really moved much, we're still at 6 degrees, cloudy outside. You need to watch out for fog patches if you are on the highway. And don't forget to grab your umbrellas. But the rain is the big item on the list today. It's on its way. We're expecting about 10 to 15 millimeters, reaching highs of 11 today. If we head west to Brandon, it's currently 4 degrees, mostly cloudy out there. We're seeing fog this morning, and those fog patches are going to be dissipating as we get into the morning. And rain is expected, totaling 10 to 15 millimeters, also getting to a high of 9. Northern Thompson, we are at -1, seeing light snow at the moment. Expect the light snow to end early afternoon, followed by a mix of sun and clouds, and the highs are targeted to reach +5. Further north in Churchill, it is -4 under partly cloudy skies. It's going to be mainly cloudy. That's what the conditions would look like later in the day. And then you'd see periods of light snow beginning later this morning. The highs are forecasted to be around 0. Down in Dauphin, it is 2 degrees with fog. Those fog patches will be dissipating also sometime later this morning. Then we'll see a mix of sun and clouds. It will turn cloudy later in the afternoon, and rain is expected. Also, anticipate 5 to 10 millimeters with a high of 11. Gimli's at 3 degrees. Steinbach is at 8 under cloudy skies. Fog patches also you're seeing this morning. Rain also expected, 10 to 15 millimeters and highs around 12. Finally, Morris. Morris is at 7 degrees, cloudy. Fog patches, and it will be dissipating, and then rain will come in. Anticipate 15 millimeters of rain, highs of around 10. But Winnipeg, it's going to be cloudy, then rain is expected throughout the day, and high we're looking at 11. Wet weather continues into the night and into tomorrow. That's it's going to be like wet.
Yep. Boots, so no open-toed shoes and and umbrella. All right, thank you. Abby Adiemi is our technician today. Corey Funk watching the commute this morning. Hello.
And I biked in today and I didn't wear any rain pants.
Oh, dear.
So I'm going to have wet thighs.
Okay.
Looking forward to that.
I mean, it'll be okay because remember when you spilled your coffee earlier today? You can just
you have to bring that
throw
up.
your shirt in there with the pants.
That's what I'll do. I'm such a disaster. Anyways, there is a couple things to look out for. Actually, really just one thing. Wall Street, got a call from Brad earlier. If you're there, it goes down to one lane between Ellis and St. Matthews. It looks like there's a film crew or something going on there. It starts you off in the right lane and then kind of merges you into the middle lane, is what he said. So that might slow down your commute if you're heading down Wall Street this morning. Other than that, things are pretty clear. It might be a bit foggy in some spots, so do look out for that. Give me an update if you want to tell me what you're not seeing. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Corey Funk here in studio. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, just about 20 minutes before 8 o'clock. Now, we still don't know what constitutes a mom joke. But that didn't stop listeners from sharing theirs. Today, we're happy to have a couple of winners of our Mom Joke competition on the show. In studio today is Deborah Murray, who will be sharing her jokes on stage at the Live Debaters taping coming up this weekend, all part of the Winnipeg Comedy Festival, which is well underway. And to help Deborah prepare, the festival's artistic director, Dean Jenkinson, joining us in studio. Hello, Dean.
Hi, Faith. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. And Deborah, hello as well.
Yes, good morning, Faith and Dean.
I understand that a couple decades ago you tried your hand, or I should say Deborah. Deborah, you've never shared a joke live on stage, I understand. How are you feeling about this weekend?
Well, I was very excited, of course, to get this call that my joke had succeeded in getting me this far in getting to the stage of the debaters and on to telling the joke. So I was pretty excited about that. And I have used humor in my work, and so some of that is in front of people. But as for a stage like the debater stage, or a stage like that,
it's different.
Yes,
You'll be fine.
I'm
It's
sure I'm
only
going to find out.
500 or 600 people watching.
Is that helping when you hear how many people you might expect?
Helping.
Here's the good news.
It's
They're
exciting.
very supportive. The debaters' audience is extremely supportive.
Indeed. I rarely miss it. Yes.
For folks who are listening, you might hear a different voice there. On the line here today as well is Daphne Young, who is also going to be sharing her jokes. Hi, Daphne.
Hey, Faith. Good morning, everyone.
You apparently tried your hand at comedy a couple of decades ago. How did it go?
When I was in my early 20s and living in Montreal, I loved to do open mic night at the local comedy club. And it was a lot of fun, it was just a lot of good friends, a lot of good times, a lot of drinks.
Okay, so some getting some liquid courage there. Daphne, let's hear your mom joke. Go ahead and share with us, please.
Okay. What do you call a mom who tells dad jokes?
And then what do you...
faux pas.
Oh, I like that.
A faux pas.
What do you think?
That's got a lot going on there. I like that. I like that very much. It's a thinker.
Well, I also like it, because it's two languages going on there.
It's true. Reflecting both of our official languages. Deborah, what about your mom joke?
Well, it's a joke.
Okay.
Burn, Daphne. Take that. Deborah's actually got a joke, apparently.
No, I meant Dean.
It's a story joke. It's a story joke. That's what you're saying.
Yes, and more emphasis on the joke than the mom part. That's
Yes.
what I would say about it. But with all the excitement in the city lately, of course, over the Winnipeg Jets making it to the playoffs, it put me in mind of a few years ago when the Winnipeg Jets got to the end of regular season and made it to the playoffs. And the first game of the first series was here on home ice. And as is our tradition, everybody's pouring into the streets for the whiteout. And then people are pouring into the Canada Life Centre, and the seats are filling up, and the excitement is building. And it's getting close to game time, and it's getting close to the teams are going to come out onto the ice. And this young couple had come in and they'd taken their seat, and a woman over here, she had taken her seat. But the couple couldn't help but notice between them was an empty seat. And they kept waiting and looking at each other, and there's nobody here. And so they said to the woman, as the teams are starting to come out, "My goodness, can you believe this? There's nobody in this seat. This game is sold out. What happened? Nobody in the seat." And the woman said, that was my husband's seat. Oh, but he died. "Oh, he died," they said. "Oh, well, we're very sorry to hear that, but was there nobody in your circle of friends and family who could take the seat?" She just looked at them and said, "Well, heavens no, they're all at the funeral."
Oh, I like that. Dean?
Also good. It had a slow build, but a big payoff.
I do like the storytelling aspect of that as well. I mean, when you first did stand-up, I mean, what was it like for you, Dean?
I mean, for me, I was 20 years old doing an open mic night, and you're young and you're dumb and you have all the confidence of youth that comes with all the ignorance of youth. It's a beautiful combination. There's a lyric in a Bob Seger song. I wish I didn't know now what I didn't know then.
I mean, you performed as well at the Stony Mountain Penitentiary.
We did,
How
yeah.
did that go?
That was tremendous. It was. I didn't know exactly what to expect. The festival had done it several years before COVID, and then COVID interrupted that relationship. I had never been part of those shows, but yesterday I got to go for the first time, and just really rewarding. The inmates really enjoyed the shows. The comics really brought relevant material to them about struggles in their lives with addiction and substance use, and just other relationship kind of stuff. And there was some skepticism from both sides, I think, at the beginning, but by the end there were a lot of hugs and handshakes at the end, and I was very gratified, and it was a really special day.
What's your advice for Daphne and Deborah?
If you want to get into comedy, keep going out to open mic nights and performing in front of strangers and having those drinks afterwards with the other comics and talking shop. And then my other advice is don't do that.
Daphne, what are you going to do to prepare?
My hair.
It's important. Yep.
You want to look good on the radio.
Yep. Exactly.
You bet.
Deborah, what about you?
Well, I will rehearse the joke, I think, a few times for sure, and time it, because I know that's important. Timing is important.
Have they given you like parameters? We want it to be shorter than.
They'd like it in 45 seconds.
45 seconds. And how's it coming in so far?
Yeah,
well, it's been cut down. It might not seem it to you, but it has been, that is cut down.
Initially, there were 2 other locations in that joke.
just a few more words to take down. Do you say break a leg for comedians as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Break a leg for all you folks. Thanks for coming in studio.
Thank you for having us, Faith.
And nice to chat with you as well, Daphne.
Yeah, thanks, Faith. Have a great day.
Dean, we'll see you soon.
You bet. Take care.
Daphne Young, Deborah Murray, winners of our Mom Joke competition. They're going to have a great time. Dean Jenkinson, Artistic Director of the Winnipeg Comedy Festival. It is underway, and the festival runs until Sunday.
Here you come again. And you say that you're my friend, but I know why you're here. She wants to know how I feel. Tell her that I'm happy. Tell her that I'm gay. Tell her I wouldn't have it any other way. Talking since we've been apart, and when I pass I hear them whisper, there he goes with a broken heart. But when you see my baby, here's what you say. Tell her I wouldn't have it any other way. That's all I got to say, my friend. Now we better say goodbye. I think you'd better go right now, or you might see me cry. But when you see my baby, this is what you say. Tell her I wouldn't have it any other way.
won't have it, baby.
From 1963, that was Jackie Shane with Any Other Way, a new documentary about the trans soul icon called Any Other Way, The Jackie Shane Story, just debuted at the Hot Docs Festival in Toronto. It's going to be released on Crave later this fall. We're expecting rain today for Winnipeg and some fog patches dissipating as the morning progresses. A temperature high of 11 degrees, so if you're still figuring out what you're going to wear, be prepared for those conditions today. So make sure you wear closed-toe shoes and bring an umbrella as well. We're about 10 minutes before 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1 Information Radio. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. When Ali Pumala moved from Toronto to Shiloh, Manitoba last September, she hoped to find better resources for her neurodiverse children. 3 of her children are on the autism spectrum. She says they need different levels of support and therapies. And while she was able to find childcare for her 2 older sons, the same could not be said for her 3-year-old son, Carson. Carson has severe nonverbal autism and global developmental delays. He needs different therapies and treatments, along with a lot of one-on-one time with Pumala or her husband. She eventually found a daycare that was able to care for her son, but she says more supports is needed still in rural communities. Pumala has started a petition with hundreds of signatures. She wasn't sure. She wanted to make sure no other parents go through what she went through. Ali joins us now on the line. Hello there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. What about you? Talk more about your petition.
Yeah, so it's called Carson's Bill. When I looked into it, I realized that Manitoba is one of the few provinces that don't actually have any legislation in regards to early childhood education and children with disabilities. And I was honestly a little shocked about that to find out that there was no actual legislation. So I took it upon myself to create a petition and write out a bill, reach out to a bunch of MLAs and get the conversation going. We're in the middle of setting up a website right now that will have all the information and research on it. That'll be kind of a one-stop shop for anybody who's interested in it. Hopefully they'll have it up in the next few weeks.
And so that particular bill that you're proposing, what exactly does it ask for?
So it's going to make sure that there is funding allocated for centers to have inclusion support workers who are trained for children with disabilities, as well as making sure that there's funding allocated for centers to train their staff and to make sure IEPs are implemented in all daycares, as well as just general discrimination laws to make sure that nothing like our family went through happened to anybody else.
What was it like? I know that after a long search, you were finally able to find childcare for your son. What were some of the challenges that you encountered as you were trying to find care for your son?
A lot of it was, especially in Brandon, was there was nobody who had any sort of training or felt confident enough to care for our son. We originally started at a private pre-kindergarten who was openly advertising having an autism specialist, but sadly she was not in the country yet when we enrolled our son, and they were no longer able to support him after only a few weeks. It was very frustrating because my son had gotten into a routine, and the routine was very quickly changed on him. He spent about a month thrown off and just having a really hard time every day. We did eventually find Riverview Early Learners, and they've been wonderful. They got an inclusion support worker for my son. He goes twice a week for an hour and 15 minutes, and he's been loving it. We've seen growth in him within the past month that he's been there. It's been amazing.
Your petition is calling for a whole bunch of changes. How would you characterize your experience about how equipped staff in daycares and schools have been in taking care of your 3 sons?
I would say minimal. I mean, they do absolutely have people who are trained within school divisions and everything like that, but to find proper care and like full one-on-one support is not really a thing in Manitoba. There is the inclusion support program, but we learned after we applied that's only for additional ratio and it's not a true one-on-one support worker, which we were quite surprised about, which, can work for some children, of course, but when it comes to children like my son who need that full one-on-one support, it is difficult knowing that he's not receiving, complete undivided one-on-one attention that he needs, because he's nonverbal. He can self-injure when he's upset. He requires 24/7 care.
What have you heard? What have you heard from the politicians you've spoken with?
I've heard wonderful and positive feedback from everybody who I've spoken with, and they do agree that this is something that needs to be brought up, because they've also heard complaints from other families. Like, I'm not the only one who has dealt with this, and that this does need to be brought to legislation. And I know for who I've talked to recently, there's been lots of conversations in regards to Carson's bill and how we can get it going. And so I've had a very wonderful, positive response with the politicians I've spoken to so far.
Ali, appreciate you making time today. Thank you, and take good care.
You too. Have a lovely day.
Ali Pumala is a mother of 3 sons who are all on the autism spectrum. She's fighting to create comprehensive legislation for children with special needs early education in Manitoba. In an emailed statement, a provincial spokesperson said Children's Disability Services uses a family-centered approach to evaluate respite care needs. There are a range of respite options available, including self-managed respite through the Families Department or community service providers. We're at 4 minutes before 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. To our CBC Winnipeg local news desk, Heather Wells joining us now. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a woman who Peter Nygaard is charged with sexually assaulting has recently been served with a defamation lawsuit. The disgraced fashion designer is suing April Telek for comments she made to CBC News last summer when the charges were announced. We'll hear more about that. Also, police are investigating after a Winnipeg grocery store supervisor allegedly punched a woman. Angela Antoine was waiting to check out at the food fair at Arlington and Portage late Sunday afternoon when she saw an employee accuse a First Nations woman of stealing food. The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs has now cut business ties with Food Fair. We'll tell you what happened, allegedly, coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Aaron Broman, Megan Ketchison, and Darren Bernhardt also there. Corey Funk is in studio for an update on the morning commute. Good morning.
Good morning. Just got a call from the cautious courier on the commuter line. He said at eastbound Portage at Donald, there's a collision in the median lane. So you want to keep right to get around that. We'd love to get some updates from folks as the traffic picks up throughout the morning. If that is causing any backups for folks, that's eastbound Portage at Donald in the median lane. So keep right as well. Brad called earlier. There should be probably going to be an issue all day. Wall Street between St. Matthews and Ellis is down to 1 lane. You're just stuck in the far right lane, and then it kind of leads you into the middle lane. Looks like there's like film trucks or something going on there. So if you see anything else going on, though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. I'll let folks know what you're seeing. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, our studio director here on the program. Abby Adiemi is our technician. Brad Lillies is our streaming producer. Of course, you can see us streaming on our CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. You heard from Heather there. 1 month after Winnipeg police charged Peter Nygaard with sexual assault, he sued the complainant for defamation. Why experts say that is a form of witness intimidation. The I-Team's Caroline Bargout joins us in studio with that story coming up after World Report. Stay tuned.
on Q with Tom Power.
Before she was one of the most in-demand producers, songwriters, and singers in modern R&B, Charlotte Day Wilson was an aspiring hockey player in Canada. She'll be here to tell you about the moment she put down the skates and how hockey actually made her a better artist.
Yeah, I still have all that energy. It needs to go somewhere. Everyone should play sports.
That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Many chefs see cooking as an art, but Ariel Johnson argues that when it comes to making food that tastes good, the science of flavor is just as important. And she has dedicated her academic career to that subject. Coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Riot police are moving in on the UCLA campus right now. Hundreds of officers arrived on the Los Angeles campus overnight. They started taking down the barricades surrounding the demonstrators' encampment. The protesters were ordered to go home yesterday after violent clashes between pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli groups. Freelance reporter Steve Futterman has been there all night. He joins me now. Steve, what has happened in the past few hours?
Well, basically, the police came in as they said they would do, and they have torn down this encampment. There are a few people still there, but basically this encampment, which has been at UCLA for nearly a week, is basically just a bunch of remnants right now. There are no tents, there are no people, the barricades have been taken down, and police have made dozens and dozens of arrests.
And how did those arrests go?
Well, some went smoothly. We saw some people very peacefully give up and have their hands tied behind their backs with those zip ties. And we saw a few people who resisted a bit. Didn't see any fights with authorities, but there were people who clearly were not standing up, needed to be pushed and lifted up, and then again put under arrest. When they were walking to the buses, didn't see anyone do anything. They had very, very serious, sad looks on their faces. Most of them, I would say, were young people. A large percentage were students, but there were older people too.
What else are you seeing there?
To me, the most memorable visual that I will have from this is just the tearing down of those barricades, how the police came in, they just tore them down. I saw one officer lift up one of those metal barricades and just throw it aside. Then they tore the wooden plywood down, and you could hear, like I said, the crack of the wood sometimes. You know, what was once a very vibrant encampment just a few hours ago is now just the opposite.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Freelance reporter Steve Futterman. Pro-Palestinian encampments are being built at several Canadian universities, including UBC, University of Ottawa, McGill, and now the University of Toronto. Dozens of protesters moved in with tents and loaded backpacks overnight. My World Report co-host John Northcott is on the scene this morning.
Normally, on a sunny spring day like this, in this large green patch in the center of the University of Toronto campus, students would be throwing balls or lying around drinking coffee, chatting and laughing. Starting at 4 a.m., they erected tents and have been monitoring the large steel fence that has been put around this area. The fence was put up a few days ago. Ostensibly, the university says to protect the area in advance of a convocation due to start in about a month. The students are here calling for the university disclose the interest that it has in Israel-related organizations and businesses and divest from them as well. Here's student Aaron Mackey.
We know that it is time and it is essential that we all take a stand against this and ensure that this university that we pay so much money for doesn't take that money and then invest it in companies that help enable this ongoing genocide.
Reaction to all of this has come from several quarters. A number of faculty groups say that they are in support of the students, both in their tactics and in their goals. We have also heard from a spokesperson from the university administration. saying quite simply that they respect the right of members of their community to assemble and protest. However, they point out that those who contravene university policy or the law risk consequences set out in laws and policies in the Student Code of Conduct. That could include suspension, and of course that could affect a student's academic status. John Northcott, CBC News, Toronto.
Back to the U.S. and what is being seen as a response to the ongoing protests. The House of Representatives overwhelmingly passed a bill last night that would expand the federal definition of anti-Semitism. The CBC's Richard Madden is following this story for us from Washington. And Richard, what is in this bill?
Yeah, so it's called the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, and it would mandate the Education Department use the definition of anti-Semitism by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance to enforce anti-discrimination laws. Now, it defines anti-Semitism, in part, a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews. Now, this bill received rare bipartisan support from both parties, and it was spearheaded by Florida Democrat Jared Moskowitz.
This is a really important time right now for the Jewish community, with students being scared on campus.
But this bill is controversial, not because it opposes anti-Semitism, but critics, including some high-ranking Jewish lawmakers and America's Civil Liberties Union, argue the bill could stifle free speech, and they point out federal laws already exist targeting discrimination and harassment.
So what happens next?
So yeah, it now heads to the Senate, where the highest-ranking Jewish politician in U.S. history, Democratic leader Chuck Schumer, is being urged to support it. So beyond Congress, we're already seeing this issue shaping the political presidential campaign. Next week, President Joe Biden is set to be the keynote speaker at the Holocaust Memorial Ceremony, while his rival, former President Donald Trump, is demanding colleges get tougher on protesters.
Thank you, Richard.
Thanks.
The CBC's Richard Madden reporting in Washington. Ontario's Environment Ministry has ordered a petrochemical facility in Sarnia to suspend production. Several people at the nearby Amjunong First Nation have become ill. Monitors found high benzene emissions coming from the facility. Benzene causes cancer. The company, Ineos Styrolution, says its own monitor has not detected emissions outside the prescribed limit. In Cambodia, schools in Phnom Penh are trying to cope with a heat wave. The bell rings for the lunch break. It's being extended by an extra 2 hours to give students relief from the extreme midday heat. Temperatures there rose to 41 degrees today. Much of Southeast Asia is struggling to cope under a heat wave. That includes the Philippines. Mobile shower units are now available on the streets of Manila. Residents dealing with water shortages can use them to cool down. Temperatures there are also hovering around the 40-degree mark. Scientists say the excessive heat is caused by climate change and the effects of a powerful El Nino in the region. The Canadian military is making radical changes to some training programs, specifically for fighter pilots and soldiers destined for Latvia. The military says internal budget cuts forced it to overhaul their training. And as Murray Brewster tells us, experts are warning it could impact troop readiness for NATO-mandated missions.
We're going to have to learn on the job.
The blunt assessment of retired Lieutenant General Andrew Leslie, a former Army commander, over the decision to stop giving troops headed to Latvia combined arms training at CFB Wainwright in Alberta. That exercise allowed them to drill simultaneously with tanks, artillery, and aircraft, and is considered crucial in modern warfare. The Defense Department tells CBC News that going forward, troops will train at their home bases and then conduct combined arms drills with allies in Latvia. But Leslie says it goes against experience that has made Canadian troops a cut above the rest and fully prepared to face Russia.
We're willing to accept the fact that we're deploying troops to Latvia who will not meet the standards of even last year.
At the same time, the Air Force is changing the way fighter pilots are qualified, retiring its fleet of training jets and asking allies to do final stage fixed-wing instruction. Retired Lieutenant Colonel and test pilot Billy Flynn says it's a mistake because Allied programs are generic.
And they'll be that much further behind in those airmanship skills that are so essential.
The country's top military commander, General Wayne Eyre, disagreed and said the changes will not lead to lower quality troops or pilots.
There's many different ways of achieving the readiness that's needed.
Ayer says in the case of the Army, it is returning to a Cold War regime where troops deployed to Europe and trained where they were going to fight. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
Unions representing federal public servants say they will fight a new mandate from the Treasury Board. It wants employees in the office at least 3 days a week. The Public Servants Alliance of Canada says it is looking into legal options. The head of the Canadian Association of Professional Employees says the change was made in secret and without consultation. The Treasury Board says the new rules are meant to bring fairness and consistency to hybrid work. The change is in effect as of September 9th. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Magandang umaga. Good morning, Manitoba. Faith Wendell here in Studio 15 at Portagen Spence. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. And yes, you have not overslept. It is still the morning. I'm sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. Coming up in this half hour of the program, experts are accusing Peter Nygard of witness intimidation after he sued a complainant in a sexual assault case against him. They say this is a disturbing trend that is on the rise globally. The I-Team's Caroline Bargut joins us live in studio for more on that story. Brad Lillys is our streaming producer today. Corey Funk, our studio director. Abby Adiemi, our technician. Lots to come this half hour. Stay tuned. And Heather Wells is in our CBC Winnipeg local news desk and joining us now. Hi, Heather.
Good morning. Hi. Well, an expert in human trafficking applauds Winnipeg police for their efforts in taking down an organized crime ring. The investigation involved multiple police agencies across the country. It led to the seizure of 30 kilos of cocaine, guns, and millions of dollars in cash, cars, and other proceeds of crime. Janet Campbell at the Joy Smith Foundation says, where you have drug trafficking, human trafficking is also often at play. And Winnipeg Transit is poised to award a $9 million contract to an Alberta company that will design and install a hydrogen production station for zero-emission buses. We'll hear all about it coming up in our next news at 8:30.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk, along with Aaron Broman, Megan Ketchison, and Darren Bernhardt this morning. We're going to say hello to Abby Adiemi, who has been following the weather. It's going to be wet, isn't it?
Yeah, good morning once again. The mercury has gone to 8 degrees now under cloudy sky, setting the scene for what's to come. Fog patches we're seeing dissipating, so you need to take it easy on the road. It might affect your vision, but rain is on the horizon, and we're anticipating around 10 to 15 millimeters to fall throughout the day, with temperatures reaching the high of 11 degrees. Tonight, the rain will continue, adding another 5 to 10 millimeters to the mix, and then tomorrow, Friday, it's shaping to be another damp one with showers forecasted throughout the day and temperatures hovering around 10 degrees. Brandon, the fog is clearing, rain is expected. We're going to get to a high of 9. Thompson, light snow ending, high +5. Churchill, mostly cloudy and some light snow. We're going to see 0 today. Dauphin sits at foggy in condition right now, and you're heading to a high of 11. Also, rain in the forecast. Gimli reports fog clearing, then rain will be coming, high of 11, and Steinbeck is also foggy, but it's clearing, and rain later, high of 12. Morris, fog also clearing, and then we will see some rain, highs of 10. To sum it up, today brings cloudy skies, fog patches, and then followed by some rains throughout the day. Anticipate the high of 10.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Abby Adiemi, our technician today. Corey Funk is our studio director.
Yes.
The commuter line was ringing there, of course.
I was thinking, I'm like, do I run an answer? But then I might miss the hit. This always happens. But if you were the person that called, call me back in like 2 minutes, and I'll try to answer. In the calls that I have gotten so far, though, been able to pick up is I got one from Cautious Courier heading eastbound Portage in the median lane. There's been a collision, so keep right to get around that. I'm not sure how big a backup's that causing, but look out for that as eastbound Portage at Donald in the median lane, so keep right. As well, Brad called, he said down Wall Street between St. Matthews and Ellis, there is it's down to one lane right now. Looks like there's maybe film crews or something doing their thing. So it's in the right lane you got, and then you kind of get funneled into the middle lane. So look out for that. It might slow down your commute on Wall Street. If you see anything else, though, going on out there, and please do call me back, 204-788-3093.
Coming up to 15 minutes after 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, I'm Faith Fundal. Last summer, Winnipeg police charged Peter Nygaard with sexually assaulting April Telek in the 1990s. A month later, he sued her for defamation. Telek was recently served with those papers and must now spend thousands to defend herself against his allegations. Legal experts and academics say it is a form of witness intimidation that is on the rise globally. The I-Team's Caroline Bargut is here to talk about that. Hi, Caroline.
Hi, good morning, Faith.
Walk us through what happened to April Telek.
So last year on July 11th, Winnipeg police, as you had mentioned, announced that they had charged Peter Nygaard with a sexual assault stemming from an incident that took place at his warehouse in 1993. The victim in that case was April Telek. At the time, she agreed to do an interview with me. So we talked on the phone, and some of the things that she said was that this felt like a victory for her. You know, after a long battle trying to get her truth to be, heard, told, and believed. She also expressed concern that police only charged Nygaard with her assault as opposed to some of the other women who had also come forward and made allegations against him. Now, Shanna Maroney is a Toronto therapist that has been working with Nygaard accusers for years. She was stunned to hear that Telek was sued and is questioning the timing of that lawsuit.
I'm left wondering, how is this even possible? How is this not just the most blatant act of intimidation that somebody could carry out? I can't get my head around how this could even happen, how it's lawful, if it is lawful.
So there are no laws preventing these types of lawsuits from being filed. Telek was reluctant to comment. We called her and asked her if she wanted to say anything, and she did, but she was reluctant because, she is being sued for defamation. But she did send a short statement, and it said, "He is suing me, claiming that the previous public statements I made damaged his reputation, the reputation of an individual who's already under investigation in multiple jurisdictions for sexual assault, who has since been found guilty by a jury."
Is Telek the only person Nygaard is suing in this case?
No. Nygaard is also suing CBC News for the story that we wrote about him being charged here in Winnipeg. He says that Telek's comments in our journalism severely injured his character and his reputation and has caused him significant loss, damage, and irreparable harm. Now, he wants CBC to apologize. He wants us to remove the article from all the websites and retract it. Now, Chuck Thompson is CBC's head of public affairs. We got a statement from him. It said, "As Mr. Nygaard has already been convicted of 4 counts of sexual assault, we are confident a court will agree this lawsuit has absolutely no merit." He also said, "It is concerning to us that Mr. Nygaard is allowed to sue Ms. Telek simply for telling her story to the media, especially when her story has been corroborated by many other women who have had similar experiences with him." Like Shanna Maroney, Toronto lawyer Gillian Natu believes that these types of lawsuits are intended to intimidate victims and basically scare other women off from coming forward.
I think that it's outrageous, but also further evidence of a concerning trend that we see in the law these days. I can't think of another instance where a lawsuit like this has been commenced while the criminal proceedings are ongoing. It does seem to be an example of, or an attempt at, witness intimidation.
So witness intimidation is a crime in Canada. Winnipeg police wouldn't say if they're looking into this. All they would say is that they are supporting the victims, but they couldn't say anything further because this is now before the courts.
Now, she said this was a growing trend. What's your sense? Do we know how many lawsuits like this have been filed?
We don't. But I spoke to a woman named Mandy Gray. Now, she wrote a book about the issue. She's also an assistant professor in the Department of Sociology at Trent University in Peterborough, Ontario. Now, she found 17 cases where women who have reported sexual violence were then hit with defamation lawsuits by their accusers, or by their abusers, alleged abusers. She says this is a global problem that is growing in places like Australia and the Netherlands. She says women are being sued not just for reporting these things to police, but also for telling their friends and their family.
What the real intent is most of the time is to shut down further discussions or reporting on sexual violence. And so we can also see that happening in media outlets being sued for reporting on these types of cases as well. We're going to see not just a disappearance of larger public conversations about sexual violence, but also a fear of telling a family member or having conversations with friends or a trusted network of people about sexual violence, which is the exact opposite of what the Me Too movement had intended to do.
In Ontario and British Columbia, they have legislation called anti-SLAPP, which really helps with these types of lawsuits.
Anti-SLAPP, what exactly is it?
So SLAPP stands for Strategic Lawsuits Against Public Participation. Now, in a typical defamation lawsuit, if you're being sued, it is you who has to prove that you did not defame the plaintiff. But under anti-SLAPP legislation, the onus shifts. It shifts to the plaintiff. They have to prove to the court that there is merit to these lawsuits. And this gives the courts a mechanism to get rid of frivolous lawsuits if they don't have any merit. Now, because Manitoba doesn't have anti-SLAPP legislation, April Telek will likely have to spend thousands of dollars, maybe even tens of thousands of dollars, defending herself against this defamation lawsuit. We spoke with, we contacted Manitoba Justice Minister Matt Wiebe to see what the province is doing. And he basically said that they're currently exploring options to protect the public from these types of lawsuits. He didn't give us a timeline or further information about what those options or what those laws could look like. We also contacted Nygaard's lawyer. He did not answer our questions.
Caroline, thank you.
Thanks, Faye.
That's the CBC's Caroline Bargut, a reporter with CBC Manitoba's I-Team. She'll have more on this story tonight on the CBC Winnipeg News at 6 o'clock. You can also read about it on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. If you have a tip about the public trustee, you can call our confidential tip line at 2047-883744, 2047-883744, or email iteam@cbc.ca.
Instant coffee that makes for a better marriage.
Harvey, want anything special for your birthday?
Just a decent cup of coffee.
A mother-in-law's critical eye.
Same eyes, same freckles, same ring around the collar.
And doctors recommending what?
What cigarette do you smoke, doctor?
Ads that could never, ever run today on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
Coming up to 22 minutes after 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, I'm Faith Fundal. St. John's singer-songwriter Hannah Green has been hard at work on her debut album, a project that she says will be filled with reflections on the journey between childhood and adulthood. Hannah's already shared one song from the album. Take a listen. This is Open Your Eyes.
Cause you seem to have locked up in conversation.
Out of St. John's, that was Hannah Green with Open Your Eyes. A cow with a reputation for crankiness has a new name and 4 newborn calves to take care of. The cow that is part of Mark Van Hastert's herd gave birth to quadruplets on April 19th. He shared the story with CBC Saskatoon.
She had them all on her own. She had 2. We noticed 2 right off the bat when we went out and checked. And by the time we started dealing with those 2, then there was another one. And an hour later, she kicked another one out. So when we discovered that we had the 4, I said, holy smokes, of course. I think it's quite rare. Saw some numbers. It sounds like it's 1 in 700,000 for conception. And to have them birth, it's like 1 in 11 million to have live births. Well, they're definitely celebrities. Most of the neighbors have come and take a look at them. To name them, they were named by the kids because they had different colors rubbed on their backs, so we could keep them apart, tell them apart who was getting fed what. Orangela, I think, and Blue Ethany, and Grinelope, I think, or I don't know. It's, the kids come up with names here. So the cow has always just been a number. All our cows have numbers for the most part. So since we named the one calf Nobody, because we only had 3 colors, the cow got named Somebody. Since we put them back with the cow, we still supplement them 2 to 3 times a day. You know, they're still fairly premature. They are premature calves, so they've got an uphill battle themselves yet. And the cow is doing well. She's quite the miserable cow. She's not the friendliest. She's just a typical range cow out here. She's a lovely mom. I swear to God, she can count. If she gets annoyed with the calves, she walks away from them. So she's getting lots of exercise. Yeah, it's been quite the ride, that's for sure.
Mark Van Hastert talking about one of his cows that gave birth to quadruplets on his farm in northeast Saskatchewan. According to the Western College of Veterinary Medicine in Saskatoon, there's a 1 in 11 million chance for the 4 calves to be born and also to survive. So can imagine why the cow is cranky.
Okay. Well, hi, it's Janet Stewart. Good
Janet
morning,
Stewart,
everybody.
Good morning. Hello.
I've just sneaked in because I usually do to talk about Radio Noon around this time. But first I have to thank you and thank everyone who played that story and collected that story because I just had the best laugh. And it was from the comment, she's quite the cranky cow or something like that. It was just very funny.
It was literal.
Quite literal.
Literal cranky cow. So there you go. You are going to be talking, opening up the phone lines again at 12:30 today.
Yes, that is a thing that we do now on Radio Noon. And today we're taking questions on the National Dental Program. Questions and concerns. It's just kicked in as of yesterday, but a lot of dentists are still trying to figure it out, and certainly a lot of Manitobans are. If you're a senior and you might be covered, but you have coverage from somewhere else, a lot of people are wondering, okay, where am I better off? We're trying to figure things out for you. So join us in the conversation. If you've got comments or questions you want to throw in before 12:30, the number to call and leave a message is 788, that's 204, 788-3797. We'd love to hear from you.
All right. Looking forward to the conversations. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's Jenna Stewart, host of Radio Noon, and the call-in program starts at 12:30, just after the 12:30 news, 204-788-3797. Your questions, concerns about the National Dental Plan there, give us a call, 204-788-3797. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. We'll give you a last look at the commute and what you can expect in the weather after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's cloudy, and we're warmed up a little bit. It's 8 degrees right now in downtown Winnipeg. Expect rain this morning, 10 to 15 millimeters through the day, and then more tonight. Our high today is 11. Last July, Winnipeg police charged Peter Nygaard with sexually assaulting April Telek in the 1990s. A month later, he sued her for defamation. Telek was recently served with those papers and might have to spend thousands defending herself against his allegations. Experts say cases like this are on the rise globally and appear to be a form of witness intimidation. Shannon Maroney is a Toronto therapist who worked with Nygaard's accusers.
What I find more shocking is that it's allowable, and this just sends a terrible message to anyone who might be thinking about, it's time for me to report this.
Nygaard is also suing CBC News for defamation. We contacted his lawyer, but he did not answer our questions. You can read more on this story on our website today, cbc.ca/Manitoba. A Winnipeg grocery store supervisor has been suspended after allegedly punching a woman accused of shoplifting. It happened late Sunday afternoon at the food fair on Arlington and Portage. Angela Antoine was waiting to check out when she says an employee accused a First Nations woman of stealing food.
He grabbed her bag and she's refusing to give it up. That's when he just like wound up and punched her. I couldn't believe it was happening right in front of me. And eventually he got her on the ground. There was 3 other guys, I think, that came and pulled him off of her.
Antoine wants the supervisor to be fired and charged with assault. Food fair owner Munther Zeed says the supervisor has been suspended pending a police investigation. Police say no arrests have been made. An expert in human trafficking applauds Winnipeg police for their efforts in helping take down an organized crime ring. The investigation involved multiple police agencies across the country. It led to the seizure of 30 kilos of cocaine, guns, and millions of dollars in cash, cars, and other proceeds of crime. Janet Campbell is president and CEO of the Joy Smith Foundation.
Where you have drug trafficking, often human trafficking is at play as well. We do see the use of drugs throughout, from luring and grooming to control and manipulation of victims of sex trafficking.
Police say the part of the investigation involving sex trafficking is still ongoing, but so far, 14 people have been arrested, including 9 from Winnipeg. Winnipeg Transit is poised to award a $9 million contract to an Alberta company to design and install a hydrogen production station for zero-emission buses. The station will generate hydrogen from methanol. Transit tried to find a way to make hydrogen from water, but that proved too expensive. Aaron Cook manages Transit's transition away from diesel fuel.
This is a technology that came out that was a little bit more cost-effective, proven for cold climate, at a price point that was within our budget.
Producing hydrogen from methanol produces more emissions than making it from water, but Cook says running buses on hydrogen made from methanol still generates 60% less emissions than running buses on diesel fuel. Well, changes could be coming to left and right turns at a busy downtown Winnipeg intersection this summer. Assiniboine in Maine has been a concern for drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians. A new report from city engineers recommends 2 changes to how and when drivers can make turns at that intersection. The first, ending right turns from Assiniboine onto Main. The second, introducing left turn signals for people on Main turning onto Assiniboine. Councillor Janice Lukes chairs the Public Works Committee.
It's not going to make everyone happy, but it's a pilot, and I'm really focused on protecting the vulnerable road user, so I am supportive of this report.
The second change would also include a ban on left turns during the afternoon rush hour. The report heads to the Public Works Committee on Tuesday, and if these changes get the green light, the city would monitor them and provide an overview of how the pilot went next spring. And in case you missed it, the Edmonton Oilers are the first Canadian team to advance to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Last night, the Oilers beat the Los Angeles Kings 4-3 in Game 5 of their first-round playoff series. The Toronto Maple Leafs play Boston tonight. It is their Game 6. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. Just head to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk, Aaron Broman, Megan Ketchison, Darren Bernhardt, also there today. Corey Funk is also in studio for a last look at the Thursday morning commute. Hello.
Hello. Yes, eastbound Portage at Donald. Keep an eye out. Got a call from Cautious Courier. There was a collision. He called me about maybe 45 minutes or so ago in the median lane on eastbound Portage at Donald. So keep right to get around that. That may be causing some backups for folks. And there's probably be a thing all day Wall Street between St. Matthews and Ellis. Got a call from Brad. That's down to one lane there. The right lane kind of funnels you into the left lane. Looks like there's some film crews or something doing their thing.
Abby Adiemi.
8 degrees in Winnipeg. Forecast for today in the province. We're seeing light snow in the north and fog patches dissipating in the south. Today, we're going to have cloudy skies, and then those fog patches would clear up. Rain showers throughout the day into the night. Temperatures reaching the high of 11. And tomorrow, we expect similar conditions.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Abby Adiemi, our technician. Corey Funk is our studio director. Brad Lillies is our streaming producer. You can, of course, if you missed the show, tune in to the recorded version of Information Radio on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. A reminder that Janet Stewart will be hosting Radio Noon today starting at 12 o'clock. And, of course, there is that call-in portion starting at 12:30. And Chloe Friesen will be sitting in the host chair on Up to Speed starting at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Mag-ingat po kayo and take good care wherever you are. Thanks for listening. I'm Faith Vundal in for Marcy Marcusa. The Current is coming up next.